Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to a new season of RSC. It is season 16. We're back in the draft format. I know a lot of you enjoy that, even though you played the pre-made one last season. But here we are with three of the admins. Myself, Archeon. I've got Mox, who's got a brand new cam, so let him know how it is. And Stingray. Say hello, guys.
The cheapest cam that money can buy.
Yeah.
How are you guys both doing on this first night of RSC16?
I mean, there's already been some results that I've seen, which some people probably wouldn't find interesting, but yeah. I don't know about other tiers, but there was a master already.
Yeah.
Stingray, already some complaints about the 4-game series in that series as well.
Oh, really?
From Master. Yep.
I mean, that was to be expected. To be fair, 3 of our teams, like we already have 3 matches today, and 3 already asked us what the format was because they made it to preseason semis. So I was like, wait, are we playing best of 4 now or best of 5? But yeah, we'll be very interested to see how those went after the stream because I probably can't look before that. But yeah, we're here to do
a bit of
power
confusion. Yeah, a bit of confusion with the new alternating system now in RSC. But we'll get there in the end, and we will start tonight on RSCast with Master Power Rankings. We will move through each of the tiers, and we will finish with the franchise average. That will be a collection of the results from each tier. We haven't predicted that, it's purely average stats. But we will move on to Master, and we'll start with the 10th place teams. And Mox, we'll throw it over to you in Ignis. We have got the Sistema Solaris team.
Sistema Solaris, it's actually both master teams are actually one of the only teams that all of the predictors agreed to be 10th. So I guess it just all falls down to if they can prove that they're not 10th. And we'll see how they do. Yeah, the Sistema Solaris roster with with their AGM Elias is actually quite a bit under CMV cap. They're actually the lowest master team, but they just have more to prove.
Yeah, indeed. Most teams utilising that 2200 that they've got, or 2100 LSV at 2075. And as Stingray mentioned before this stream, that is one of the first times I think that I've actually seen 5 people rate a team 10th. Sistema Solaris team name is Iovi as well. We've got them in the franchise names for this at the moment. But moving on to Glaciers Stingray, we've got KDJ's master team, which is called Zeus.
Yeah, they've had a bit of an unfortunate ending to the preseason because their highest players have left the RSC more or less due to some issues with undeclared accounts. So they got Cavernin, who we drafted initially on Team Berserkers. I rate him quite a bit, but probably not at the level of Surf. So the roster currently consists of Cavern, Carson, Klutz, and Larson. And we have the same situation as with Sistema Solaris, that we just have 10s throughout the board. It's obviously a bit hard because we've never seen the team play. They just picked someone up after having to cut someone else from the roster. And also Carson not having the best record, with Klutz being a new player. It's just hard to see anything but the 10th place right now.
Yeah, they weren't the worst team in preseason by any means as well. Obviously that roster change may damage them, but they were 5th out of 10th in that conference for stats rank. But as you said before we started the stream, preseason doesn't mean a lot in Master because some people just don't play it. We can move on to the 9th place team in Ignis, which is going to be Team Berserkers, which is the team name just Berserkers.
Yeah, so Berserkers, which is Stingray's own team, he didn't really believe in it. I've actually put them a bit higher. But yeah, Slayer, Crime, Quint, Dinant, and EB. Patroid, as usually, wanting to get his old uni teammates in. There were 4 predictors predicting the 9th, that put them down to the 9th slot. But again, on stats, they really didn't do well. They were in the upper half. I mean, they didn't do bad. They were in the upper half, so I guess, yeah. Again, see what they're gonna do. I think this is the first time Slayer Crime actually got on a team, but I'm not 100% sure on that.
It's been so many years since he played. I remember him being one of the highest players at one point in the early seasons of RSC when I took over, I think season 5. But next up on the Glaciers side is Heck from the Unitox franchise.
Yeah, that one is a bit interesting because we have Tico and Faith, two Finnish players who are probably playing outside of RSC as well, together with Fat Dylan and Quaze. They've been predicted 9th by 4 people and 8th by 1 person. But I feel like this is more down to just not knowing a lot about them because they've probably played together outside the league. They've not really shown anything in preseason. And they might surprise people, but at this moment, especially with the tough competitions, most people have them quite unanimously in 9th.
Yep, and moving on to 8th, I believe we have the DSQ franchise in Ignis, team named Nox.
It's Nox, which the roster consists of Match 10 as the high player, then Josh, Errol, and Leo, or Lion. Josh is a player that has come up through the tiers within RSC. Then we have Match 10, who I believe this is the first time playing at least in at least a bit long of a time. I've already actually seen them play. They lost 1-3 to the team we will see later. But there was some possible positives to see from that game. At least they brought it back in the 4th game, so maybe that spirit was gonna get them a bit higher.
Yeah, that was the game I did indeed watch as well, where I heard the moans about 4-game series. I think that team thought it was done at 3-0, but they managed to lock in for game 4. And like you said, positives there with Leon, who started the match as the lowest CMB. So it seems like they've got a sub game in it already if he is the sub, and took a game off that team. But moving on to Glaciers Stingray, we've got 20R with the team named 20 Rangers.
Yeah, we have a similar situation as with Unitox again, with Zobus, Truske, Exemplar, and Axel. Truske obviously an RSC veteran. Zobus signed up last season and didn't get a team. And Exemplar and I'm not sure about Axel, to be honest, but they've been new to the league as far as I know. Some people had them a bit higher. I had them 6th, GM had them 6th as well, but other predictors had them 8th, and 9th. So probably more to the bottom. Will just be down to Zobus to actually prove himself as the high player, and with Truske bringing in the experience within RSC. But again, it will be a tough season for them, especially with the competition we will see later. There are some good players in Master.
Yeah, I do have a fun fact about Axel and a posture theory of being a new player. He's actually Deep Sound's son, the media head or ex-head. He played in Challenger in season 5, and I believe he moved up to Rival in season 6 or 7. So the last time we did see him was a long time ago. I didn't realise he was 18 now, but possibly seeing him as the Master Sub there. Moving on to 7th place in Ignis, I believe we have Transcend from the Momentum franchise.
Yep, the roster of Woozy, Blocks, Dash, and Sebastian Rosa. Woozy obviously last season played on Dexterity, with the team that kind of overperformed in some people's eyes in playoffs. They did quite well that was with Kingsman. And then there is Blocks, who I don't know much about other than I believe he's Danish, and Dash, who is a previous RSC Master winner. So they were predicted 8th 3 times, which put them down to 7th, but they were also predicted 4th by Dash himself, which might be a bit of bias, but we will let him slide, and yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, and moving on to the Glaciers side, we have Inferno of the Brave Esports franchise, and they'll be looking to improve on a really poor season last season as a franchise.
Yeah, this is also the first time we have some disagreements. We have Jaya, NC, Dem, and Dapsy on the roster, with the highest placement being 3rd from Dash and the lowest placement being 8th from myself. What I personally, and maybe some others also saw, they already had their full roster in preseason and they played it in almost all matches, and they didn't do particularly well. and with NC also having a postseason last season already, it might be rough for them, but some people see them higher, so they might surprise some people.
Indeed. Moving on to Ignis, we have Sanctuary with the team name Paradise, and we're moving into teams that have like well-known names over the past few seasons, Max.
Yeah, Mimico, obviously, definitely a veteran of Master. Very often used to play for Stingray's teams and Green Phoenix. Then we have Juice, actually quite high, 1990. He's also come up quite a bit, I believe. When I started RSC, he was on the lower end of Master or Elite. Then we have Mayfair, RL, and Ocean, both at around 1900. For this team, all of the predictors were a bit in agreement, putting them between fourth and fifth, and then one putting them at seventh, netting them at sixth place.
Yep, and moving over to the Glaciers side, we have Team Serene with the team name Kazoku.
Yeah, this is one of the rosters with just all RSC veterans. Halo obviously also going up the ranks, just as Josh before, at like 2.16k now, which is incredible, as he's been in Rival and Elite before, of course, with Spoots, Kieran, and Ben on the roster. Also mostly been in agreement. I feel like this is just a roster where all of them are like saying that's a solid roster, they'll be doing fine, but I don't think they can compete with like the top dogs with the 5th, 4th, 6th, and 8th by GM, who doesn't really believe in them. But middle of the pack seems quite reasonable for this roster.
Yep, and moving back over to Ignis in 5th place, we have Alpha Surge with the team name Korakami.
Predicted them 7th, which the roster consists of Tai, 77, Skies, Osik, and Kairu. Osik did very well in RSC11 on the full Icelandic team in Forge. Skies used to have quite good ties for Templar. And then, yeah, Tai and Kairu rounding out the roster. I put them a bit higher, but this is honestly... Master is also like an enigma to me. I wouldn't really know. Also, these whole predictions are basically an enigma. We don't know anything, but yet we try to predict them. So yeah, they got an average of 5th place from the predictors, so that's where they are.
Yeah, and moving on to Glaciers in 5th place, we have Death Cloud Esports with Tempest, and I'm not sure about this one, Stingray, but I'm pretty sure I saw Bites cut this morning as well, so I'm not sure who the 4-man roster is here.
Yeah, I'm also not sure right now. This is certainly a wildcard team. Rapmob being a person who's reached top 16 in EU Open 2 with Numster, I believe, with Cleverlay, and I don't remember the second person right now. Together with Verify, which is somewhat of a pre-made, I know they've played before. And then Krolek, and we don't really know the third right now. And that is being seen throughout the predictions. Like, 2 people have them second, with Dash and myself, and Mox, GM, and Matrix having them in 7th, 6th, respectively. We haven't seen Rapmob play in preseason as far as I know, so he's technically a wild card going into league play, but with him having such high RCS placements, I feel like him particularly will be a person to look at.
Yeah, I'm swinging it back over to the Ignis side. We have Owls Esports entering RSC this season with the team name Aussie and a few recognised players here, including a master winner.
The roster of Tomster, Penny, Llama, and Guma. Llama winning on that Symbiotes roster with Kingsman and Dansku. Tomster, obviously, there was this one run that I definitely remember when the team of RLI did quite well in playoffs of ERS. They went on a very good run. Penny, I'm not quite sure on the person, but I'm sure that they will fit quite well with Lama and Tomster. We've also actually predicted this team to be the dark horse, putting them in 4th, but again, I believe this is, at least in my eyes, this is because of that one run that Tomster did in playoffs, proving that he can be a big game player and then do well on the day.
Yeah, I'm swinging back over to Glaciers, and I'm glad we do swing to you here, Stingray, because we do have a very good team on paper, it looks like, with a couple of people ranking them high, but you have them as low as 7th.
Yeah. Roster of Dreamy, Thiago, Jax, and Bertram. Thiago, well known as the second player to Smashy last season. Jax, also RSC veteran and also Master veteran, with Bertram being a solid sub forever. And Dreamy as the main player. I'm just not sure if Thiago and Jax have the capabilities to support Dreamy as much as, for example, other teams, which we will see later. And also Dreamy not having like the perfect track record in previous seasons, apart from the run with Pantera where he had Surf as a support, which is quite a different player to Thiago in my opinion, but I might be totally disrespecting them and they will prove me wrong, which I'm definitely sure they will do. So
Which usually happens in some case in power rankings, because
absolutely.
everyone moans
I'll be
moans
getting a
us.
DM by Dreamy if they'll be doing well. Don't worry about it. After they win their first game.
Yeah, but Dark Horse is a 4th and below position, so maybe that's one to look out for. Moving over to 3rd place in Ignis, though, we do have Virtus of the Dexterity franchise, and a lot of well-known names here.
Roster of Berserk, Charm, Alanis, and Skiwi. Skiwi ranking up quite considerably recently within our leagues than Alanis, Charm, and Berserk. Obviously, those higher tier players for quite some time. It's actually the only team in the Ignis conference to use their full CMV. Yep, they were predicted. Actually, only one person put them 3rd, but everyone else kind of agreed that they would be close. So with the averages, they were put in 3rd as well. Even though some other teams might have been predicted higher by other people. Anyway, yeah, this roster of Virtus definitely has something to prove, as well as the fact that they have 2 of those high, but not the highest players, which isn't that often the case for this season's master rosters.
Yeah, indeed, and it is interesting that they put a lot of trust in Alanis as well. I think they built around her, and she was the first pick because they know she is a staple in RSC. So building around a 3rd player there instead of instantly drafting a high player. But moving over to Glacies, we have Aspire Esports with Zenith and featuring one of our own admins.
Indeed. Reptic is the 4th player from who I know will be the main player, at least for now. This is essentially the same team which almost did the miracle run in Master Playoffs last season with Rukia and Reptic, just with Miller instead of Epics, which is an upgrade in my opinion. And Lankai is the 4th. I also know Lankai is moving from Ghana, I believe, to Europe, so he will also play on better ping, so he might be helping in the later stages of the season instead of Reptic. I'm not sure what the plan is there, but also a great player already on 140 ping, so we will see what he can do on low ping. People predicting them around 4th throughout the board. 4th, 4th, 3rd, 5th, and 4th. I think most people are in agreement that they will be fighting for those top 3 places, and as it's been an established roster, they definitely have a good shot at doing well.
Yeah, and moving into the top 2 now, and obviously this name was going to be somewhere around about the top 2. We have Smash It on Night Esports, and I believe the team name is Firen. I don't know how to pronounce it properly. I'm sure there's some Irish thing to it, but yeah, Mock Smashy on this team with Crisps, D Lynch, no one knows Nova.
Obviously, Smashy is one of the best performers across multiple seasons of RSC. Went on a big run with that Husky roster. Obviously, also ROCS. Then we have Crisp, who did quite well in last season's playoffs. D-Lynch and Nova being 2 franchise managers of Nate. I mean, I'm sure that this roster would have probably been 1st if it was in the other conference, at least predicted 1st, based on just the name of Smashy alone. So yeah, everyone predicted them either 1st or 2nd. They just got L2 less firsts than the other team that we will get to next.
Yeah, and moving over to Glacies, we have Abyss of the Shadow Esports franchise.
Yeah, this is very impressive for them to finish in second because we've talked to Kyle, Mr. Efficiency, who's the GM of Shadow, before the season, and they basically gave away most of the early master picks in the belief that they could get a solid roster with picks starting from round 3. And with them being predicted second, I believe they succeeded. We will see how they do in the season. We have Kadely, who you may know from some Mercy videos recently, Daniel RL, Sylvia, which is Datho, and Heinz Ketchup as the sub. They have quite some variance in their predictions with 2nd, 3rd, 5th, 2nd, and 7th from Dash. But overall, most people believe that they'll be doing well. And even if they don't finish second, I believe Kyle will definitely see this as a success, depending on how much resources he put into Master this season in the draft.
Yeah, personally, I haven't looked at these rosters, but looking out at those 4 and the risk that Mr. Efficiency took, I think my viewpoint would be similar to Dash's here. I wouldn't know where to put them at the moment until we see them play. So I agree with Dash's 7th there. Maybe a little bit mid-table, but they have got the averages with a couple of people. So we move up to number 1, and that is Illusion of the Illusory franchise. And Mox, it's Smashy versus Cash.
Smashy versus Cash, actually, this already happened today. It started 47 minutes ago. I do not know the result. But yeah, it's the roster of Cash and Cashier from last season, who won quite handily during the playoffs. Then we have Kingsman coming off of that dexterity run also quite well. And Dote on sub, which some people would definitely consider for main roster, very mechanical player. Averaging a 1.42, basically because people were just figuring out whether to put Smashy or Cash first. They are also our predicted champions. Generally, yeah. We will see what Cash will do this season.
I'm not shocked by the number 1. I'm just shocked at when did Kingsman and Gas hit 2000 CMB? It's been a long time since he was memed in Elite tier by now. But moving over to Glacies for the number 1 position, we have Montezuma of Azteca Esports.
Yeah, before I kind of want to go against the Kingsman disrespect, he finished 3rd last season in playoffs, so that's totally nothing to scoff at. But going to the roster, which has been predicted first by every single person who has predicted, with Jazz, Matrix, Dimitri, and Wix. Azteca has been a bit, well, in question about picking Jazz first with Cash and Smashy available, but those predictions and probably also the results in preseason show, with them winning the preseason, that they have a solid roster together, and it was probably the right decision to pick Jazz first. However, as already mentioned by Mox, I believe this team would probably be predicted 3rd in the other conference, just with Smashy and Cash being superior, as well as you can see in our predicted champion.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Heavy first places from everyone there, rarely seen in previous seasons. But we do move on to the dark horse, and you spoke about it before, Mox. It is Aussie.
Aussie, Megan roster, Tomster, Penny Lama, and Guma. Yeah, definitely like one of the more polarizing rosters in terms of predictions. We have 3 third places and 2 7th. But again, everything can happen on the day. Tomster can have a really good playoffs, and this is our dark horse. It is particularly, I think, harder to predict a dark horse in Master because it's a bit more set in stone who wins than other tiers. But this is what we have chosen.
Yeah, and the predicted champion Stingray, we've got Illusion, and it's one thing of reuniting the previous winners of Cash and Kazir, but you've also got another master winner in Kingdom and Gas. But what I'm looking at here as well is the strength in depth with having Dote as well, who is an impressive player on his day as well.
Oh, absolutely. With having Cash as a support player and Dote, who's at least mechanically one of the better players, definitely for his CMB, And if he can someone who can support him and maybe like cover for his errors, which he definitely does, if he reaches his potential, he can definitely help this team, even though currently as a sub with Kaji and Kingsman being the main players. But Cash has proven last season, even though he wasn't trusted during league play, that he can just win playoffs whenever he wants to, with just dominating. I believe we had an 8-0 in one of in the upper final, in the lower or the upper semi-final, which was just complete domination. So we believe that they will just go back to back, and Kajir getting his 3rd trophy.
Yep. Illusory versus Night Esports final, anyone? As we move over to the elite tier. And we'll start off with the 10th place team in Ignis, which I believe is Saturnia of Sistema Solaris.
That's correct. The roster of Red Set, PJ, Raza, and Ashabank. The predictors were generally in agreement, putting them between 8th and 10th, resulting in a 10th place. I mean, there is some RSC history, with Raza being quite a known name, but recently, I mean, coming up in the ranks, then now I believe he's around the same as he last was. Then PJ was a notorious Dev League player last season, which again, we are bringing back Dev League if anyone wants to play that. And then yeah, Ashabank and Rexet. I do not know the name of Rexet. I know Ashabank has signed up last season and has played a bit towards the end of the season, getting picked up to a team that was already outside of the playoffs contention even before he joined.
Yeah, just moving back to Master just momentarily. I have just got received confirmation from Kingsman Gas that they did beat Night Esports 3-1, so Cash is winning that battle straight away of the battle between Cash and Smashy. But moving back to the 10th place team in Glacies, we have Unitox with the team name... I can't find it.
Nguni.
Nguni, that's the one.
Yes, with a roster of Tuck, Rastok, Jexa, and Marxy. I believe Jexa has been in Unitox last season already, with Kevin and Yummy. I might be wrong though. Tuck being the player who was on Rival Shadow in RSC14 and then got moved up because he peaked like 300 MMR within 2 weeks in the preseason and didn't really get settled there. So we will see how we will do in the new elite old low master tier, as the caps have shifted quite a bit. But yeah, predictions are 10th, 9th, and 10th for 4 players, and 5th by Kevin. 5th by Kevin, 385 MS, who might know a bit more. This prediction might also just be down to some people just not having seen them play yet, so they might surprise.
Yeah, it's very much a friendship group. I don't know about Raztok, but I know Tuck, Jexa, and Maori, or Morai. Sorry, I don't know how you say that name, but they did finish 7th in the stats rankings as well, which was pretty impressive for their side of the draw. And Tuck did retire his sign-up, as you said, after peaking that season, so it looks like he did progress a lot more after that, and maybe we'll see him play at that 1865 rank. But moving on to 9th place in Ignis, we have Feig of Night Esports. I'm probably butchering these names.
The roster of Faxen, Yusk, Vladimir, and GM Clean. I mean, Faxen also, an interesting fact is like he had a player with an RSC who is now no longer playing recently. Anyway, the roster was predicted 7th, 9th, 10th, 9th, and 9th. I predicted them a bit higher because I did used to have Faxon on my roster in RSC12, so maybe a bit biased there. But the others placing it squarely in that very low part of the table, putting them in 9th of overall.
Yeah, I can see both sides to this, to be honest. I could see maybe a high ranking with Faxon, Jusk, and Vladimir all being previous masters and good masters at that back in the day. I can also see the low ranking that I can see maybe people thinking that they might be a little washed. We haven't seen them play for a while. So I see both sides to that. But moving on to Glacies, we have Azteca Esports with the team name Atlacoya.
Yeah, we have Fear, Big Bad Wolf, Green, and Hypnos. Big Bad Wolf obviously being one of the players on that great Team Serene team. We had
Stingray?
with... Sorry? Yeah, with Fear being a
Have we
player.
lost Stingray?
I'm not sure.
He's muted in Discord, but he's not muted on stream.
Okay, that works. Apologies.
Yeah.
But yeah, we
There
have
we
Fear.
go.
We have Green, who is an American who had in trials in preseason and has a very questionable availability, so we will see how much he actually plays. And Hypnos obviously also a veteran player, so they might be doing better just by that. I think Fear is just an unknown factor for now, and people don't have them all the way at the bottom except Kevin with like 7th, 8th places. Also very much a wild card for a lot of teams, which seems to be with quite a few rosters in Elite this season, to be quite honest.
Yeah, moving on to 8th place in Ignis, we have Sanctuary with the team Haven, and this one surprises me a little bit of how low some people have gone.
The roster of Fish, Choco, Crumb, and Johnny Greenbean is just whether the predictors kind of thought about how Fish has kind of peaked during that one Symbiote season of ERS, beating the competition by a lot. That was with Rapids change, and I'm blanking on the last one.
Exile.
Who?
Exile.
And Exile, yes. Then Choco playing quite a bit and like quite an all-timer player. Definitely playing a lot within ERS, RSC. Crumb, coming back last season after a bit of a break, did quite well with a bit of a bounce back with Amphibians, and then Johnny Greenbean, who I don't believe had much of a team, or at least wasn't that big part of it. The predictors putting them 8th and 5th place, netting them an 8th in total, but they did do quite well in preseason, being 6th, so anything can happen.
Yeah, I believe Choco made playoffs with DSQ last season, and I know Johnny Greenbean, I think, plays University Rocket League. I've met him in ranked a couple of times, around the 1600 mark. And he's also a solid player, from my opinion, which is why I was surprised on some of the low ones. But moving over to Glacies, we have Forg with the team Bladesmiths.
Yeah, we have almost all veterans, with Axios, who's been around for years at this point, who took a break in between for, I think, 4 seasons. Slumpy, Moggy, who obviously won Elite 2 seasons ago, and Ryan, who's been doing very well on my own franchise last season, without me on the team, to be fair, and therefore being moved up to Elite. Yeah, this team, I feel like with Moggy just joining so late from, I believe, Owls? I'm not entirely sure. But this team just didn't have a lot of practice. Axios isn't a proven player. He's been in the league before, 2 seasons ago on Forg. And then a while ago on Ox Esports, I believe. So we will just have to see how he gets back into the groove. Slumpy, individually great player, didn't fully work out on his team last season, but maybe Moggy can lead this team to a higher placement than we predicted here.
Yeah, in 7th place in Ignis, we have a fan favourite last season, which was Celeritas, or aptly named Celery Sticks, from Dexterity.
Sort of Pills, Silas, It's Justify, and VU. Pills being the AGM to Shattered, also getting quite higher in ranks now. Silas obviously going quite quickly up the ranks, used to anticipate at least 2 seasons for Green Phoenix. It's Justify and VU. VU also being quite a few times AGM for Dexterity. So this is very much a Dexterity team, and it's only more of a Dexterity team given the fact that it's full German. One of the only actually full single country teams, especially outside of the UK. They have been predicted 9th by me I'm on dexterity as well, so maybe a bit of an opposite bias to my GM. And then 6th, 5th, 7th, and 6th, netting them a total of 7th. We'll see what they do.
Yeah, next up in Glacies in 7th, we have a very experienced RSC team, other than AO, with Okami on Team Serene.
Yeah, we do indeed. We have AO, who was the counterpart to Nova on that great Our Island team last season. Just forgot the name. Who unfortunately bombed out of playoffs with Nixo, who was on R5, and Chad and Nick obviously also just being veterans. This team was quite controversial, at least. Most people had them like in the lower mid-end with 7th, 8th, 5th, 8th. But then 385MS Kevin believed they would finish 2nd, so maybe a lot of us, the 4 other of us, just don't see the potential in this team. But with the averages, we end up in 7th, just outside of Plains.
Yep, moving on to 6th in the opposite tier, we have Deception of the Illusory franchise, and we have to immediately go to the 3-time Elite tier winner, RMD.
RMD winning RSC11, winning RSC15, I'm not quite sure. I think RSC12. Yeah, definitely went on a run there with a bit of a break. Yeah, massive winner. We actually predicted them, like most of the predictors predicted them higher with 3rd, 5th, 4th, and 3rd. But then the last predictor putting them 10th brought them down to a 6th. Thornhill as well, being last season's master champion, albeit on sub, but still. Doing quite well on that dexterity roster, and then JB Gaming coming down from master, I believe. So yeah, I do see the potential, especially with that 3 times elite winner. I guess Kevin doesn't. That's what put them 6th.
I'm seeing people in the chat saying he got done dirty, but I'm pretty sure RMD's record is RSC 11, 13, and 15. So going by trends, he doesn't win this season. So we move over to Glacies with KDJ Esports, and the team name is Olympus.
Yeah, this is essentially a pre-made duo of Genzo and Form who've been trying out together in preseason and also ended up on the same team in the end, with Mr. Spud and Diary finishing up the roster. I feel 2 things led to them being predicted a bit lower. For once, Mr. Spud and Diary are just a wild card. Mr. Spud coming up from Rival last season on a Brave team which did decently well, but not amazing for the peak he got, even during the season already. And Diary also being a wild card. As well as the same thing we had with Brave, that they already scrimmed and played together in preseason as that pre-made roster and not doing too well. But maybe if they play together more, and especially that like chemistry between Genzo and Form comes up, they will finish higher. Also, most people had them, everyone had them 5th except Kevin who had them 4th, but Banan doesn't believe in them at all, putting them in 10th.
Yeah, moving over to Ignis, and we will talk about these a bit more later on, but we've kind of got 2 different groups here. We've got Aya and Cedrata from the successful Illusory roster that went 11-1 with this half of the team last season, and a friendship group in Rollback Noodles and Gold.
Yep, on Alpha Search, which is Ferni, I guess. I'm not sure how to pronounce the name of a Hungarian dragon. But yeah, Aya and Cedrata did really well to come back on that Illusory season. Then yeah, Rollback Noodles being an elite winner and RSC12 player of the season, Golden doing really well, but in lower tiers usually, being player of the season of last season's Rival. But yeah, that Cedrata and Aya, I believe, is what put us into giving this team the Dark Horse badge. Because it may go really well and they might try and compete for the championship. Yeah, the average prediction of 5th. Me and Stingray putting them a bit lower, but not Alpha and Kevin agreeing on 3rd or 4th.
Yep, and moving over to Glaciers, we have Aspire Esports with the team name Summit.
Yeah, we also have all known players with Shadow, who has been on Aspire last season already, Serenity coming over from R5, Rico, who's been on Dexterity, and Banan coming up from Aspire Rival last season. So 2 out of 4 players just basically being kept on the same franchise. Not much to say about this team except Banan predicting himself second. Most people think they will just about scrape into planes with the 3 6th and 1 7th place. Just a solid mid-table roster. I don't think there's much potential to the top as well as to the bottom. This was just a team that will do decently well throughout the season. Maybe doing a run in play-ins and then just see out the season.
You've got to love the bias power predictions.
Oh,
As soon
absolutely.
as we get to send the
Always.
notice out. We move over to 4th place in Ignis, and we have Owls Esports with the team name Barney.
Sort of Lynx, Cowdy, Liam, and Razor Scourge. Obviously, Lynx, Cowdy, and Liam being absolute veterans of the upper half of Elite tier. Liam also being, I believe, a master winner actually when he was with Peachy Boy and Valkyrie Knights. Again, this roster is kind of predicted by the 5 people predicting quite well, but no one has put them first. This is just like an all-around, definitely top half roster, and them being put 4th place is what I agree with.
Yeah, and speaking of 4th place over in Glaciers, we have Nefelli from Death Cloud Esports, and there's one player I kind of like on this roster who didn't really get a chance in the pre-made season, Stingray, and that's 22473. I'd like to see how he does in it.
Oh, absolutely. Also, a player I wanted to point out because he's been glazed by basically half the Elite here at this point in the Elite discussion channel, as well as in tryouts and scrims. Together with Lumi, who's been the main part of that Shadow team last season, which probably exceeded expectations somewhat, because Mithril hasn't been the biggest fan of that team, with Drizzy coming up, as well as Resist Jaguar, who's just a solid 4th who will just complement the others. This is just higher mid-table throughout, 3 4th places, 1 3rd, and 1 7th place prediction. If that duo of Lumi and 220473, however you say that name, comes up, they will definitely be looking at a good season.
Yeah, one thing I would love to know, why does someone name themselves after 6-digit numbers? Where does that come from? Well, I have seen in 6-mans, he's a very demo-heavy player as well, so yeah, like I said, looking forward to seeing how that works. But moving on to the top 3, and we're moving into upper bracket territory in Ignis, and that's DSQ Esports with the team name Carbo.
Last season's Elite winner Alf, George or GC Exile, Pyrrhic and Wessel. Wessel also being kept in the jail of Elite by admins, as he would say. Alpha and Wessel definitely, they've already played on DSQ, I believe. Then yeah, George coming in, I believe midway through the preseason. And then Pyrrhic, I don't really know Pyrrhic, but definitely Alf being like the #1 player. Based on people's opinions, he was also picked #1 in Elite. We've put them... Alf put himself first, obviously, because of bias, but then I put them second, Stingray 4th, Banan 6th, and Kevin rounding out with a 7th, netting them an average of 4.1 and a 3rd place.
Yeah, and in 3rd place in Glaciers, we have Shadow Esports with the team name Darkness, and a lot of experienced people are hosting.
Yeah, we have Cena, Exile, Wavy, and Mithril. Obviously, Exile and Mithril being the ones that, well, stand out as people who have, like, Exile having won the tier, Mithril having won the tier below. And Cena, who is just a very good individual player who's played on Team Berserkers in the last season, as well as on another franchise I currently don't remember, but he switched teams. He was probably the best player in both of those, And if he gets teammates who can complement him well, this is definitely a team to look out for. We have one first place prediction by Alf, and another second, third, and then one 8th place prediction by 385MS, who doesn't quite believe in this team, but overall the averages end up in 3rd.
I'm just getting DMs saying off nation saying Carbo's been scammed, so I think he's expecting a top 2 finish here in his conference. Speaking of top 2, we move over to Ignis here, and we have Giles from Team Berserkers.
The roster of Cluey, Kale, 3300, Atos, and Elikitten. Yeah, Elikitten solidly climbing through the ranks every season that I see, and then in usual Stingray fashion, the other 3 people I'm not that familiar with. I believe I have heard the name of Atos, and I have seen Kale and Chloe play on their streams in preseason. I believe they did win the preseason tournament for Elite, so maybe they can break that curse and then come over to win the actual tier.
Yeah, and over in Glacies, we have Brave Esports with the team name Blaze.
Yeah, we obviously have Rabbiter, who has been let down into Elite again just because of the caps changing. He's just being let down. Same thing with RMD. Every time he gets here, he'll be doing well. He won on that very dominant ERS team we mentioned earlier with Exile and Fish, and he will be trying to do the same again with our best and most well-known Twitter user Frank, who might actually be right this time with winning. We shall find out. Being complemented by Cameron K, who's also been a solid player on, I believe, Brave Esports other teams, and Pinchman, as far as I know. So, with the 4th being Rylo, who I don't really know a lot about. Only top 3 finishes throughout the whole prediction, so everyone agrees that this team is definitely a contender.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing this team, especially Cameron K. I picked him up when I was at my last stint as an AGM for Team Serene, when we were dominating the tier, and obviously wanted him for playoffs, but then his availability changed for American football that he plays, so we had to cut him in the end and didn't do as well in playoffs. And he hasn't really got a team in RSC since, I don't believe, so it was nice to see him picked up, and I'm looking forward to seeing what this team can do, and if Frank's got 2 people who can carry him to a trophy this time. But moving over to the top spot in Glacies, and we have Momentum with Velocity.
Roster of Season, Lovely Cans, Woozy Panda, and Ish. Woozy Panda being a 3 times champion. Season known historically to do very well in league play and then fall off during playoffs, which is one of the reasons that this team was not predicted to be champions. And then Lovely Cans, yeah, definitely a veteran player. Didn't really play that much recently, because people probably weren't, the admins didn't really let them drop down maybe enough for the GMs to go for it, but this season Lovely Cans has got a chance to go with Season, and Woozy Panda, and then Ish is, I believe, on sub. Again, also quite a known player within RSC. Predicted 3 times first and 2 times second, so this team is definitely at least predicted to do quite well. And that's, yeah.
Yeah, and moving over to the final first place spot over in Glacies, and that is 20R with the team name 20 Raiders.
Yeah, the Kevin propaganda has definitely worked on this one, with 3 people predicting them first in Mox Banan and obviously himself, with the roster being 385MS, Connor, Yummy and Kevin obviously always playing together, and Catat as the sub with an average prediction of 1.81, which just averaged out above the one of Brave Esports. And they've also been the predicted champion, because 3 of the people we asked predicted them to win the tier, which is interesting.
Including 385.
I don't agree with, but we shall see.
But yeah, we will look at Dark Horse and Predicted Champion, and we might as well start with Predicted Champion since it's been mentioned. But I think any team that has Cat Dad as a sub, I think is strong, especially when he knows a lot about coaching the game as well, and his management style that we've seen in the past. I rate the roster. I don't necessarily put it first, as I said to you in DMs earlier, Stingray, after sending you 385's prediction. But I definitely see it being a top 3 team. And the ones that we've got to compete with that as a dark horse, as 4th and below, is the one we mentioned earlier, Mox, with a couple of illusory players from last season.
Alpha Search, Sadrata couldn't really stop talking about being doing very well towards the end of leg play when they got picked up. And then the Ayer also on that roster. And then rounding out with Roll, who's definitely a veteran elite player. So yeah, possible dark horses.
Yeah, that is the elite tier. I see some happy faces in the chat and some questioning the predictions, mainly RMD. Like I said, he wins every 2 seasons. He won last season, so it's not happening this time. And we'll move over to Rival. And the first 10th place team we have is over in the Ignis tier, which is Uranium of Systema Solaris.
I do not know if this has ever happened, but we have predicted the Systema Solaris team to be 10th 3 tiers in a row. The roster of Hazard, Bizdrugs, Terry, and Kinetic. Kinetic doing quite well last season on a rival tier that was quite a bit lower, on a flawless roster. Hazard having a bit of a hiatus in being on a team. Then Bizdrugs, the AGM, and Terry to round it out. Terry being also quite a veteran player. Yeah, being predicted 9th, 10th, 10th, 9th, and 10th. Doesn't really bode well for them, but maybe they can prove the predictors wrong.
Yeah, and 10th in the other conference, Stingray, is Brave Esports with a team named Flame.
Yeah, they have gotten 4 10th places, and Mox believes a bit more in them with putting them 7th. I just believe what also most predictors thought is that this is a team of 4 unproven players in the tier. We have Lettern, who was on Sanctuary before, and some other teams that didn't do particularly well. Beeping Sheep dropping down from Elite technically while staying in the same CMV. Subi coming up from Challenger. And Finchy not having played last season as far as I know, being on Brave in RSC14 as well, which didn't quite do well in similar fashion. And with the competition, we just don't believe that they have it cut down.
Yeah, and moving on to 9th place in Ignis. I don't know whether Conflict will be happy that we've not got him 10th or the fact that he's still low down in 9th. It is Continuum of the Momentum franchise.
You said that roster consisting of Conflict and Joke, which definitely is... They have been playing together for a very long time. And then they have picked up Weekend towards the end of preseason. Actually, both Joke and Weekend being picked up from from being drafted to other teams. And then Bogai as the lowest player. I mean, there isn't really much history to go off of this exact team because, as I said, Weekend was only picked up within the last few days. And then Conflict being my teammate from last season. Joke was also on Alpha Surge with an elite, just an elite tier. They actually did reasonably well, but here we have them finishing out in 9th place on average, but the average of the actual placement was 8.08. This just puts into perspective how the tier is closer than maybe some others, because the predictors were a bit more wild with their picks compared to, as in being less consistent between themselves.
Yeah, and ninth place on the other side is Chianina of the Unitox franchise.
Yeah, we have the well-known duo of Evelios and Maui with Payo, who was previously known as Perversa, I believe, and Strength as the fourth person. This team didn't do well in Rival last season already until the addition of Sweaty Kami, who's now in the middle of Elite. And we believe this is technically a downgrade from last season. With Evelios and Maui obviously playing a lot together, but just maybe not working out in threes. He has put himself fourth. The other critics have put him in 9th, 7th, 8th, and 8th. So very consistent throughout the board of a bottom placement. But maybe they will be proving us wrong this time. The results from last season just don't seem to expect that.
Was Freiner, not Powerser, I
Oh,
believe.
fine, right. True.
And heading back to Ignis, we have Aptus of Dexterity.
Yep, the roster consisting of Friday, who I believe Shatterhaze tried to build around, picking him in the first round of draft, and then Spaka, who I do not know much about, but I have seen some good things in the rival discussion, and then Shattered and Gene W. From what I have heard of my GM ranting, this team did quite poorly within preseason. But still they were predicted 6th, 7th, 8th, 7th, and 8th, putting them on an average of 7.3 and 8th place. We will see if they can do better.
Yeah, and moving over to the other side of the conferences, we have Death Cloud Esports with the Vortex team.
Yeah, we have TJ, Roop, Nyom. Kingsman would have loved that. And Stealthy Wolf on the roster. I feel like for most people, I have them predicted 5th. The others have them all in 7th or 8th. It's more of a wild card. I just haven't seen TJ play. So I can't really say much about it. Roop is solid individual player, but he has to prove himself to be worth the 1730 CMB. With Nyom moving up from a lower tier and Stealthy Wolf being a staple of the rival tier, have in old times. So I feel like we don't really know what to expect from this team. With us also being in a similar fashion, putting them in 8th.
Yeah, and moving on back over to Ignis, we have the 7th place team, which is Scath from Knight Esports.
There's sort of Captain Pudding, Kryn, R1, Anthony, and Nova Oli. Personally, I didn't really know of any of the players other than Anthony within the RSC environment. So out of just lack of knowledge, I have put them 10th. The other predictors put in 6th, 6th, 8th, and 6th, netting them an average of 7th. Much like some other Nate teams we will probably see, they maybe have gone for a bit less known players, but let's see what they do.
Yeah, and moving over to Glacies, and we have the watchful eye of Wolfie in the chat ever since 10th place. It is Journeyman.
Yeah, first of all, a quick note to Nate, which might change their ranking. GM Clean has been promoted, or is supposed to be promoted to the elite roster, so they will have to find a new player for that team. And we are still...
It's Captain Pudding, Kryn, Anthony, and Nova Oli. That's 4 players. I said the correct roster.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, that might have changed a few predictions because the team that was predicted was with GM Clean and Captain Pudding instead of now Nova Oli as the 4th. However, moving over to Forge, we have Marcia, Wolfie, Rolev, and Daddy. I have been told that roster changes might also already be happening soon, so we may not see this particular roster for long. Wolfie dropping down from Elite after an eternity, and maybe not looking towards the most successful season, together with Rolev moving up from Brave in Rival last season, as well as Daddy, who's also been an Elite player for a while, but just dropping down through the ranks with the years, and now almost being close to Min Rival. Marseille, I believe having seen them in Master even a few seasons ago, but is more of a wild card, and we shall see how this roster looks in the end. People predicting them from 5th down to 9th with an average of 6.9. Nice.
Yeah, and moving back over to Ignis in 6th position, we have Caligo of DSQ.
Yep, there's sort of Lolly, EO4, MCC, Change, and Blizzy. Change being last season's rival runner-up, Blizzy being the season before that runner-up of rival, and then EO4 MCC, who has come up, I believe, from Challenger up to what would have been Elite if we didn't move over to 6 tiers, and then Lole, who I don't really know much about. They are one of the. They're actually the lowest team in the whole of Rival by just raw CMV. There have been predicted within 7th, 9th, 9th. Evelios actually being really generous, putting them 1st, and then Sato again in 9th, netting them an average of 7.03 and this rank of 6th.
Yeah, and moving over to Glacies, we have 20 Rocketeers of 20R.
I just thought for a second that Mox was in the wrong line. However, the predictions look very similar for 20R, with Evelios putting them 1st, and Sato Snow putting them 9th, and the others putting them 5th and 8th, with a roster of Salvahard, Killer, Jameso, and Fluky. Killer returning, has been a rival player for a while. I'm not sure how long of a break he took, but he was definitely a rival player in RSC11. And Salvahard dropping down from Elite being on 20R also in multiple seasons, with Jameso and Fluky lining up the roster. They've been complaining about some predictions in the rival discussion chat, and they might be correct with how variant the predictions are, but at this moment we have them just scraping into planes in 6th.
Yeah, and in 5th place we have Sanctuary with the team name Temple.
There's sort of local Tidier, Skips, and Veka. Local Tidier and Skips being recently, at least local maybe a bit more longer time ago, but being rival, especially Skips last season playing on at least 2 rosters. Tidier also, I believe, on 2. Tidier has done quite well in that one Sanctuary season, but hasn't really gotten back to those levels in terms of results. And then Veka being the lowest on the roster, even though across the seasons, I believe Veka has been the highest player out of the 4. But that just puts into perspective how Local and Tidier have peaked. This roster actually, the predictors have been in agreement, putting them between 4th and 6th, netting them an average of 5th and a 5.03 average.
Okay, and moving over to Glacies, we have KDJ with the team name Prominence.
Yeah, in that roster we have a Boyer, as well as Borisa, who's come back after a 3 season hiatus. Been a master player the last time he was around, so now down in rival with probably similar CMV he was back then, just due to the tiers shifting so much. As well as Spacey, who dropped down from Elite as well with Afar. There hasn't been a lot of agreement. I believe Mox just put them 10th just out of not knowing the roster a lot, with the others putting them in 7th twice and 4th twice respectively. Just from those predictions, this roster seems to be more of a wild card as well, to see how Borisa gets back to his level and how Boyo performs. So, not much to say about this roster. Seems to be anywhere between top 3 or 10th as a possibility.
Just a seasoned Spacey hater.
And that is also a valid reason for that.
Moving back to Ignis, we have in 4th position another admin person on the team. It's Carl's on Team Berserkers.
Yep. There are sort of Minty Fresh, NC, Sasuke, and Stingray. The franchise of Team Berserkers have been a bit in a bad position put by the moving of the tiers. They were looking at having a basically a free rival tier, and then moving of the tiers made all of them low rival, getting them in a bit of an awkward position. Yeah, Stingray and Sasuke have already played together, and I believe they've won the Challenger tier in RSC12, I think. I think it was RSC12. And then NC and Minty Fresh, who I have not heard those names yet much, but again, yeah, this roster is also the second lowest by just raw CMV. But the differences within this tier are much lower than in Master, where it might have had a bigger impact. Here we range this team being the second lowest tier. Within the tier is only 40 lower than the highest. Being predicted 5th, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 4th. So generally in that lower half of the upper half of the table. Netting them a 4th place.
And 4th place in Glacier Stingray, we have Focus of Aspire Esports.
Yeah, here we're seeing like the first example of maybe a very smart roster change. Most people, especially in the rival discussion chat, had them in clear last before they made the roster changes. They now have the known duo of Mensu and Bailey on the team, with Mr. Poggy being, in my opinion, a very good low player, and Spongy, who's been great together with Golden last season on Redirect and Rival, having a solid trio together. And most people agree putting them in between 4th and 6th as a mid-table team, which might have some potential to surprise, as we have put them as the dark horse.
Yep, and over in the upper bracket territory in Ignis, we have in 3rd Owls Esports with the team name Nightbird.
Yep, the roster of Fatcat, Chiron, Drum Hunter, and Bale being the roster to actually win the preseason tournament. This roster has had some setbacks in terms of some drama surrounding it within preseason, but they're still moving on with 4 players that they have drafted. Fatcat being maybe coming up from a higher tier, Chiron being within also elite last season, but even though he is higher CMV now, he's now in the rival tier. And then Drum Hunter is definitely one of the people with biggest, the largest amount of seasons completed. And then Bale being the AGM of Owls. They were predicted between 3rd and 4th by everyone, netting them an average of 3rd.
Yep, and moving over to Glaciers, we have Shadow Esports with Nightfall.
Yeah, we stay with the teams that have made some very positive roster changes, at least in my opinion and in the opinion of other predictors, with getting in Lucario, who's been dropped by the SQS, I believe, together with AV, Evoke, and Ken. AV being the sole carry player of that Panthera roster last season, as well as Evoke dropping down from Elite, and Ken already being on Shadow last season and also doing quite well. The team being predicted 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 3rd, and 6th by Evelius, who doesn't quite believe, with an average of 3. We shall see how this roster change affects them, because we haven't seen them play, but just from the names itself, with Lucario and AV being definitely proven players and Evoke being a great player in Elite usually, at least for his rank, which would put him in like low prospect at the moment. They're definitely looking towards a good season.
In 2nd, over in Ignis, we have Mirage of Illusory.
In this case also there was a bit of a polarization between the predictors, between them and the team that will be in 1st place. But Evelius putting them 4th brought them down a bit and cemented them in that 2nd position. The roster of Snow, Seam, Mars on Earth, and Detroit. Detroit coming back after quite a bit of a break again. A player who by just rank would have been Min Academy, I believe. but maybe being put up 400 CMV wasn't enough, and he's still really good value as a player. And Snow and Seam being the two AGMs of Illusory, and Mars on Earth, who has recently played on roster of Shadow. Yeah, being predicted first twice, second twice, and then that fourth place by Evelius, bringing them down to second instead of first.
Yeah, and over in Glacies, we have Team Serene with Sinjuru.
Yeah, this is a similar story again, with 3 people dropping down from a higher tier. Although Strafe already being in Rival last season, but being a veteran elite player before, with Skies, Pacey, and Combat from Alpha Search Rival last season, filling the roster. Combat also one of the highest picked players in our Fantasy League, so if you want to join the Fantasy League, get yourself the minigame role and you can look in the server to get in there. And maybe also pick Combat for your team. But they've been predicted second or third throughout the board, except Evelios not really believing in them, putting them in fifth. But with the strength of them just having the experience from higher tiers, I definitely think they will be a contender. Also for playoffs, just with the experience.
Yeah, and speaking of playoff contenders, these will be the people who we look at of being potential title winners. We have Apophis of Alpha Surge.
Office, I believe. Most of the Alpha Surge teams are named after dragons. The roster of Sato, Rapids, Ethereal, and Little Dutch Boy. Sato, obviously, finally out of Wolfie jail. And then Rapids coming off of an incredible season with Illusory, but in a lower tier. Yeah, Ethereal coming back to play after a bit of a break, I believe. And Little Dutch Boy filling out the roster as fourth. They have been predicted second twice and first, the second 3 times and first twice, with an average of 1.66 and the rank of first. Also, they have ended up being our predicted champions, which is understandable with this roster.
Yeah, and over on first on the other side, we have Azteca Esports with the team named Tizok.
Yeah, we now only have 4 players on this roster, with Fall, Morph, Ponk, and Toby, but in my opinion, this has been one of the all-timer drafts by Azteca, with the 2 players being dropped being Magic, who is a veteran elite player who's been doing really well, and Kolo, who's been named as one of the best players in the tier during preseason games and scrims. So they essentially had 5 players who are definitely capable of forming a winning roster, and with the 3 players they now have left, with Fall dropping down from Elite, where he has been struggling a bit, Morph as well dropping down again into the tier he feels comfortable with, and Ponk, the exact same story, with Toby filling off the roster as the sub. 3 people putting them in first, Mox putting them in third, netting them an average of 1.65 and the first place in the Glaciers Conference.
Yeah, it's nice to see Ponk back as well. He was a teammate of mine in Season 8, and we were actually top of the league when I cut him and replaced him with someone else, but we did go on to win the tier anyway. But I haven't seen him since around Season 8 or 9, so good to see him back. But speaking of the dark horses and predicted champions, we have spoken a little about it. The dark horse, Stingray, you mentioned Mentsu earlier for Aspire. That's who we've got.
Yeah, already talked about it a bit. It's just a duo. I mean, missing Niche, who's down in the depth of Prospect at the moment. I don't really remember that franchise, but we will definitely talk about him later. And filling that roster with Spongy. We haven't really seen them play yet because it's a new roster, but we believe that just the chemistry between those two, and as well as Mentsu, who has gotten some experience in the elite tier last season and not performing too badly, will have a shot at developing into a roster that can contend for the title at the end of the season. But this is up to them to prove.
Yep, and Mox, you already touched on Alpha Surge as a champion. What makes you think they could be? I know you put them second in the conference.
I put them second, but there's like a bit of a 50-50. Sato, obviously a veteran elite player, that had some very, very good results. Rapids also usually being put up quite a bit higher than his peak rank would assume, but also proving every single season that he's doing very well. Ethereal being rated quite highly, at least before the draft. Maybe they have been a bit trolling during preseason, but that is honestly what I would expect from these players. But again, being put first and predicted champions, winning the Ignis conference and then playoffs.
Yep, we can move on to our fourth tier of 6. Feels like these are getting longer every season. I don't know how, but here we are. 10th place in Ignis, we have Sanctum of the Sanctuary franchise.
Yep, the roster of Liam, HM, Buck, Borsvel, and Greninja. This is a bit of like the tier that finally I get to like see the gameplay, because I have played against this roster already. It wasn't particularly impressive, but maybe they can come back and be better during league play. Liam HM is a usual illusory name within the Challenger tier, but yeah, Challenger being higher this season, we will see how he does. I believe he was already on this level last season as well, but the previous season. I do not really know the name of Buck. Haven't heard much about that. Then Borsvo, being the replacement of Samdusk in the was it Samdusk or was it on the other one? There was 2 teams in Challenger one season that had really good chances to win, and then they've both kind of fell off a bit when they have done swaps of players. I believe Borsvo was one of them, which is a bit of an unfortunate reputation. And then Greninja rounding out the roster as also quite high of a 4th player. Yep, we will see how they do. They have been put 9th 3 times and 10th twice, netting them an average of 9.49 and the rank of 10th.
Yeah, I can see why. I also played them in pre-season and won 4-0 as well. They aren't a bad team. It just didn't look like they had much chemistry together. Maybe that'll pick up after a few games. And I know they finished bottom of our pre-season table, I think, as well. But moving on to 10th place in Glacies, and 4 out of 5 people ranked these 10th Stingray.
Yeah, it's Rise from Aspire, being Emmy or Slimy. Moonface, Kendo, and Merits on the roster. Only person not predicting them 10th being Mox, probably because of his former teammate Moonface, who got traded over from Dexterity in the preseason.
My PTSD from RC11.
Also that is valid. Yeah, Merits coming up from a lower tier. Kendo being the Challenger winner from 3 seasons ago now, I believe, even? Or 2?
2.
2 seasons. RC14. And just... I have to be honest, I've been influenced by a few scrim results because I haven't seen this team play, and they've just not been doing well, particularly against anyone. And from what I've been told, there is just no offensive threat in that team. And I also believe that the competition in Challenger is just very strong this season, especially in the Glaciers conference. Like, I put them 7th at the start, and then they just dropped down because I saw other teams who I believe would do better. But maybe they can get together, get the chemistry going, because this is what this team has to go through, and get a higher placement than most of us believe they will.
Yeah, and moving back over to Ignis in the 9th position, we have. Oh, I'm not even trying to say that name. It's Night Esports.
The roster of Eddie, Hazard, George EFC, and Jaffa 550. Eddie being the most... was the most recent? the ERSC Landemonium winner with myself. Haza, who has played upper tier last season, doing not particularly well on that possibly historically but redirect elite roster. And then George EFC and Jaffa 550, who I haven't really seen much about. They were predicted 8th, 7th, 6th, 9th, and 10th with an average of 8.11 and the rank of a 9th.
Yeah, moving over to Ignis, and Sistema Solaris might be pleased that they weren't predicted 10th in 4th tier running, but they are 8th here, which is still quite low.
Yeah, I feel like we shouldn't just jump over a stack at the poor guys with Chimali being in 9th.
Oh yeah, sorry, I didn't see that. Yeah, Azteca first.
Yeah. With Lois, who was on that RSC13 roster I was thinking of earlier. I just said the seasons wrong. With Gecko, Rubix, and Simdog rounding up the roster. I think it comes down to the same thing we had before, just with the competition being so strong and Loithless not proving to fare well in higher tiers, which this is the same tier he won in, but about 130 CMV or MMR higher than it was before, which just makes a huge difference. Gecko being the sub on Dexterity last season, and Rubix and Simdog also either being a 3rd player or 4th player or moving up from lower tiers, netting them an 8.7 average with 3 9th places and 2 8th places. So most people just believe the competition is too strong for them to get into the postseason.
Yeah, I have seen Lois making his like kind of introduction to like playing RLCS now with a team of 3, and I remember him getting at least 1 game off a decent team. So maybe he has improved and can be that carry player now, but it remains to be seen. As we mentioned, Sistema Solaris are 8th place in Ignis. It's not been a very great run so far in our predictions. Fox.
Yep. I mean, moving on to the 8th place in the Ignis conference, we have Sistema Solaris Neptunium with the roster of Alex, who has been rated quite highly before the draft. I haven't really seen much after. Then Bad Snorkler, who makes me this has been a recent roster change, which I'm pretty sure I have done my power rankings before this roster change because Bad Snorkler is my goat. And then finishing the roster is Senko, who has done quite well on one of the Green Phoenix Challenger rosters, and Killer Goose, who has been consistently within around the CMV range for quite a few seasons now. They've been predicted 10th, 9th, 7th, 6th, and 7th, letting them an average of 7.88 and the rank of 8th, but again, had I done the power rankings a bit later, I probably would have moved this roster a bit up, but still, the average of 8th remains.
Yep, and moving over to the Glacier side of things, we have Team Serene with Psycho.
Yeah, we have Akmo, Metepic999, who's the GM of Team Serene, Rowlinator, and Migra, with Metepic and Migra already being on the rival roster of Team Serene from last season, both dropping down the tier while staying the same value. Same thing for a lot of people. With Akmo, who has been somewhat highly rated in the draft, and Rowlinator as the 3rd. I'm quite surprised this roster fell down so far, with Rox predicting them 9th and the other predictions being 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th, but just by averages, which are slightly lower than some other teams, with the middle of the pack being very close together, netting them a 7.09 average and an 8th place prediction, which is essentially the same as 5th to 8th. So nothing to worry about them, they can definitely surprise.
Yep, and moving over to 7th position in the opposite conference is Kanans from DSQ Esports.
There are sort of Hikari, Phoenix, LZ, 244Z, and Taffy Jones. Hikari doing quite well at the end of last season, coming back coming into Team Amphibians after Tidyr left. Phoenix finally thought he was getting to rival, peaking 1600, and then we've introduced a new tier, putting him back where he belongs into Challenger. LZ244Z I do not know much about, and Taffy Jones has been quite a name within the lower tiers as well. I have put them 5th, given the fact that I have actually played the roster, and I believe they were quite reasonably skillful. And then the other predictors, putting them in 8th, 10th, 7th, and 8th, netting them an average of 7.65 and the rank of 7th.
Okay, and over in the other side, we have Brave Esports with the team name Ember.
Yeah, in this team we have Aspect, J, Rise, Crimkiller, and E. Crimkiller being the very early first pick from Brave, so they really wanted to have him as a low player. Together with Aspect, who has been in Challenger free agent, I believe, 2 seasons ago, and then played in Prospect before, the old Prospect, under the name Face Sway. I don't quite remember the teams right now. Was on Shadow in RSC11 and on DSQ in RSC12. Now going up to Challenger, technically in the old rival caps. J-Rise being a player who was also on one of my franchises previously and has been doing semi-well in the rival before, not really making it into the postseason. And most people believe they might just scrape into it, or just right outside the playing places, with Mox putting them 10th. This is a roster we can't really predict. From what I've heard from Arch, who's played them, they're kind of a glass cannon roster. So we will see how they fare with their playstyle, if they change anything during the season.
Yeah, speaking of that scrim, they actually played with Acmo and the Aspect, so I didn't realise they were on 2 different teams, but yeah, they were trying to be a very demo-heavy team, but that was Acmo, J-Rise, and Crimkiller, so I'm not... maybe Acmo was just filling in for them for a scrim, but yeah, they're very aggressive, very demo-heavy, but sometimes it isn't the best decision. They got countered a lot, but it makes sense if one of them wasn't actually part of the team. Moving over to 6th position in Ignis, we do have Owls Esports with the team name Owls.
Roster full of previously AGMs, that's Sam and Flipip, on the different teams. We have actually put this team as a dark horse, with Ares, Dats, and Sam being quite experienced players, especially Ares and Dats being Dats coming from elite tiers, Ares coming from usually the rival tier. Again, same CMV, but this is a lower tier in a sense. They have been predicted 6th, 6th, 8th, 8th, and 6th, netting them a total of 6th. But there is a possibility of them doing quite well with so many experienced players, so that's why we have put them as the dark horse.
Yep, and moving over to the other side, we have 20 Riflemen from the franchise 20R.
Yeah, we have XTPR, or however you pronounce that, RSC16, or however you pronounce that. And
We don't. Sorry. Risi has been cut.
Okay.
It's XTPR, Panda himself, Offanim, and myself.
Oh, alright. Okay. XTPR,
It's just a
Panda
glitch
himself,
on the
Offanim.
back end.
That makes sense. With XTPR being a player who's been around for a while, but as far as I know, never got on a team. Who's just been drafted and released every single time, so maybe this is the season he can prove himself and actually stay on the team. Panda himself obviously being a proven player in the old Challenger tier, as well as Offanim being in the franchise management, and Arch, who is once again at the bottom of the tier.
Why did I peak 30?
Yeah, not really sure how this team is gonna go, and the same thing for all the predictors, with a variance of 4th through 9th, putting them at an average of 6.65 and the rank of 6th in the end.
Yep, the tier changes coming to mess my season up as usual, but I'm happy I'm on a decent franchise and with sound people, so that's all that matters really in draft. Moving on to 5th place, we have Qantas and Dexterity.
Yep, this is actually my roster of Mox, Nolaran, Sick, and Nako. I will not go over my achievements, but I believe Sick is quite new to the league. An interesting fact is that this roster is comprised of myself and then our 4th, 5th, and 7th round picks. Which just proves the fact that in draft, even though you might not be the most known player or the most rated player before the draft, you can still fight for a roster spot. I have predicted our placement to be 3rd because of bias, and then the other predictors have put us 5th, 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 and 4th with an average of 4.43 and the rank of 5.
Yeah, moving over to Glacey's 5th position, we have Forge and Apprentices.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. We have Alone as the overall first pick in the entire tier, together with Stam and Bozo, who's on the management team, as well as Jambi, who wasn't on the management team but is technically deeply rooted within Fork, as well as Panic, who's also on the management team. So this is essentially a Fork roster all in itself, and a lot of people had them highly rated at the start of the preseason, but with results being quite middling. This has changed for some at least, with Mox putting them 8th, while Eddie still puts them at first and 4th and 4th and 5th as the other placements, putting them at an average of 4.46 and 5th. We will see if those preseason results are a fluke. They usually are. However, with the expectations that they went into it, it's definitely a downer, and they will see to bounce back in the first few weeks of league play.
Yeah, I'd love to see how Alone does. I really like Alone as a player and a friend. He's always I don't know whether he's struggled in higher tiers recently, but he's obviously come down to Challenger now. And he's with a friend group as well, but they do have the lowest CMB used in the whole conference. So that might be one aspect to the rating. Moving over to 4th, in Ignis, we have Momentum with the team name Impulse.
We have Mac, Flossy, Abdul Coder, and D-Smiles. Mac being the previous season's rival runner-up. Flossy, who is the AGM, currently also doing SSA. Abdul Coder, who was also on that previously mentioned, teamed with Senko that did quite well in the Challenger season a few seasons back. And then D-Smiles, who I haven't seen much of within the leagues. They have been predicted 7th, 4th, 3rd, and 5th, with an average of 4.42, which is only 100th higher than the previous team, and the rank of 4.
Yep, they did have the highest stats rank in the tier through preseason as well, and I I played these myself as well. They did look impressive. They're very demo heavy, especially Abdul Coder. I think he got 17 demos in the series. Very annoying to play against, and they're very aggressive, but maybe one that can get caught on the counter. They did almost have us 4-0 as well, but we just managed to get a fourth game victory in overtime. So I know Mox's individual ranking has probably brought this down a little bit, otherwise they maybe would have been top 3. Moving over to Glacies, we have KDJ Esports and the team name Royal.
Yeah, and this roster we have Spence and Jay here as the second highest player, who I've been told is going to be the sub, with Buddha and Yak being the other main players. Spence obviously dropping down from Rival and being there forever on Sistema Solaris last season. who did decently well, made it into play-ins. Buddha, obviously a Challenger finalist from 2 seasons ago, and Yak being on Brave Esports, also in Challenger last season. This is an interesting team. A lot of people rated them highly just by playing against them, and I can confirm that we struggled against them, and our team has not been named yet, so they're definitely looking good if scrim results have anything to say, which they usually don't. But we will definitely see. Buddha being a very experienced player and also grinding threes ranked basically all day from what I've seen, and also hitting a new peak, or at least close to a new peak, hitting GC2 again in threes, which is quite impressive with this CMV being so low. And people putting them between 2nd and 6th, so there's definitely potential for them to even contest for the title.
Yeah, the person who had them 2nd was Buddha, to be fair.
Well, I mean, someone else had them 3rd.
Yeah.
So.
Moving on to Ignis, 3rd position, heading into upper bracket territory. We have Alpha Surge and Joe Munganda.
Yep, now they've chosen some Norse mythology with the serpent, the sea serpent. But yeah, the roster of Axlos, Sen, and Lukfos, which are all very experienced players. Axlos and Sen might have one of the most games together that I have probably ever seen. Lukfos being also a very experienced player coming down from the rival tier, even though his CMV has stayed, I believe, the same. And then Mythics to round out the roster, which has also been quite a experienced player, also previously playing in an elite tier as well. They were predicted 4th, 4th, and 2nd, making them an average of 2.5 and the rank of 3rd.
Yeah, and in 3rd position in Glaciers is Unitox with Fujiyoshi.
Yeah, the roster consisting of JCB, Wonder, Caf, and Heki. Heki obviously being the GM being promoted from Prospect, but he has been doing quite well in preseason, so it seems to have been a good move. JCB returning last season after a 3-season hiatus, being a veteran within RSCs, playing since RSC10, but never really getting the results. Very mechanical player, and we will see if Wanda can be the support player he needs. Wanda obviously winning Rival, the tier above, just 2 seasons ago, together with Matrix and Morph back then. And Cav still staying in Challenger, not promoting himself to Rival this time, which he has done in the previous season, so maybe this time, if he's forced to stay in Challenger, being almost min, he can do well. Most people, 3 people predicting them 3rd, Max predicting them 2nd, Eddie not really believing in them in 6th. But with the experience and also like the winning power you have in Wonder, this is definitely a team to look out for.
Yeah, and in 2nd position, we will talk about these a little bit later on as well, but it is Illusory and Mischief.
Yeah, the roster of Mischief is basically the previous season's Challenger winners of Pers, Tank, and Ronan, in addition to the previous season's rival winner, but a sub Rox, who I've been told is also going to be sub on this roster. These are the first and I believe the only team that has not been predicted to win the league play within their conference, but has been predicted to win the playoffs as predicted champions, which just possibly shows just like the range in which the predictors for the Challenger may go, with being predicted 1st, 2nd, 4th, 1st, and 3rd. So possibly the easy or like the simple choice for the predicted champions, but they have shown that they can play very well together, going 17-1 last time. Actually, both parts of the roster going 17-1, only Rox being sub. And yeah, simple choice of the champions.
Yeah, and over in 2nd place in Glacies, we have Shadow Esports and Eclipse.
Yeah, we have not Aihang, Mr. Efficiency, the GM himself, Qtezo, and Lucas. Not Aihang being one of the most contested players in the draft, ending up on Shadow in the end. threes main, peeking over his current CMV into rival in threes, which is quite impressive considering how different 2s and 3s ranks are usually. Mr. Efficiency being the support player who has to step up to get this roster winning, and Qtezo being the unknown part in here. They've been predicted quite highly early in the preseason, but results have dampened this excitement a bit for some people. Mox still predicting them in first, me predicting them in second, but we also have a 6th place by Buddha. So this is more of a wild card, but with the expectations they went into the season right after draft, they might definitely become a contender again, being predicted in second with an average of 3.1.
Yeah, and here we are at the top of the table now in Ignis, and we have Team Berserkers with the team name Thralls. There's not much I know about this other than Venny, but there is one name I keep hearing this preseason, and that's Panda.
Yep, the player of Panda being I believe 5th pick in the draft. Then Lynx, who has previously won the rival tier, that is being RSC11. But that he wasn't playing during playoffs. Then we have Blaze_A, who I do not know much about, but have put in my fantasy. And yeah, Vanit rounded the roster. This team has been predicted top 3 across every single predictor, Stingray actually putting them the lowest, 3rd, as the GM of the franchise. But yeah, this team is quite hyped up with the players of Panda and Lynx, being the head of the spear of the team.
Yeah, and first position of Glacies, we have Atmos of Deathcloud Esports.
Yeah, we have Zixify, Ghosty, Cynics, and Holo. Zixify dropping down from Rival, being that mechanical individual player who is on console and can't really come over Discord, which has been an issue before. We will see if this becomes an issue again. But he has been playing really well in preseason. Ghosty just being that perfect third, second player who also won together with Kendo. And Cynics, who's been struggling for a few seasons, not gotten a team for, I believe, 4 seasons, being an FA all the time in Elite and Rival, now dropping down to Challenger and maybe being on a winning roster from the predictions we are seeing here, with Holo rounding out the roster as the sub.
Yeah, and as we head into Dark Horse and the Champions, we have spoke a little about them, and we'll just start off with the Dark Horse, which is Owls from the Owls Esports franchise.
Yeah, already been talked about a bit. Ares, Dots, Simdusk, and Flipip. Ares obviously dropping down from Rival, being an experienced player. Dots being an Elite, I believe, just 3 seasons ago in ERS, where I played him in the postseason. So, postseason Elite experience just over a year ago. Samdusk, we all know him. Flipip being the solid 4th player. A lot of people predict them very low, with 3 people predicting them 6th and 2 and 8th. But just the experience of this roster, even though the results and maybe also the expectations haven't been here, can potentially spiral them into a top contender over the season. At least that's what we assume.
Yeah, I think we spoke about a team like that in Elite earlier on with Faxon and 2 other previous Master players as well. So this kind of worked for them as well. Duts was Master way back when I think when I took over RSC in season 5 or 6. They dropped probably not too much CMV, but obviously down the tiers. But moving on to the Champions, and as Mock said earlier, we see the same team from last season that won Challenger, and I'm very surprised, Mox, that they managed to max out the CMV here as well and keep the same team.
Yeah, they also had quite a bit of cushioning in the sense that Rocks, if this wouldn't have fit, Rocks could have gone up and be the rival sub, but they have snagged 2 very capable low rival players as well. So yeah, maybe again the simple and like the easy choice, but these predictions are kind of impossible to make in a sense, and they are never correct. So we will see if we can maybe defeat the back-to-back and not let them win again.
Yeah, I personally said when the tiers changed, and also to Stingray earlier, without seeing the caps, that I didn't think the same team would win again with a tier change, but I never realised they maxed out the cap, and maybe it's pairs peaking, or maybe they could just do it again, but remains to be seen. We finally move on to Prospect. In years gone by, this would have been the last tier that we did, but hey ho, we've got one more after this. We'll start off with the 10th place team in Ignis, and that is. I'm not even saying that name again. It's Night Esports.
Esports again, giving us all of the Irish names that are hard to pronounce, but the roster of Tooted, Waffle, Iro, Reki, and DP76. DP76 coming back after quite a long hiatus from the league. Tooted Waffle, I believe, was FA quite a few times, and then Reki coming up from technically still Prospect, but now the Prospect tier is basically what Challenger used to be. And then Iro, who I haven't really heard much about. No one has predicted them 10th, but the 4 9th place and 1 8th place, netting them an average of 9.91 and the rank of 10th.
Yep. We move on to Lacey's 10th place, and that is Embark from Aspire Esports.
Yeah, with the roster of River Risks, Simao, who's also an AGM, Sam, and Sneaking Shoe. Sneaking Shoe, interestingly, coming back after 2 years of not playing in the league, I believe even more, who has been around since RSC season 4 or season 3. I teamed with him in pre-season in like RSC season 7 or season 6. He's definitely been around, and he's now gotten back at pretty much the same CMB he was back then, I believe. Maybe a bit higher. And yeah, nobody really putting them low. Just in general, Prospect predictions are all over the place. Nobody really agreeing on anything except a few ones. With them being predicted 7th 3 times and still ending up in 10th place on an average. And yeah, Prospect seems to be a real wild card about the final standings, and nobody's really sure what's gonna happen.
Yeah, I genuinely don't know what happened to their pre-season with their stats points as minus 36. I've never seen a minus before, and finishing dead last of pre-season stats. I do remember this team maybe getting a few forfeits with Dizzy as captain and then leaving, and Simao I think has been on holiday, so I'm not sure whether they actually played or not.
Yeah, Sima hasn't been playing. And
Yeah, so maybe it was just forfeits. Yeah, not much to go off in that case. We move on to 9th place, which is Shrine of the Sanctuary franchise.
There's sort of Cyanic, Wally, Krezers, and Botrcisław. Krezers obviously being a previous Prospect winner, but this was another Prospect than what we have here now. Botrcisław also being a Challenger runner-up on RSC11. Then Wally, who has, I believe, been quite a few times also on Sanctuary. And Cyanic, who I have heard but not really remember much about. I'm sorry. They have been put 10th twice, 8th, 7th, and by the AGM of the Sanctuary franchise GM being put 5th, giving them an average of 8.06 and the rank of 9th.
Yeah, and over on the other side, we have Team Serene with the team name Yokai.
yeah, with the roster of Matty, who is new to the league, I believe, Stones being a staple in Prospect and also in RSCAcademy winning that. Semi, usually being on Team Berserkers, this time on Team Serene. And Ozzy has also moved up from old prospect into the new prospect as one of the best players there on Unitox. Again, not really with the same predictions, Mox putting them 4th, and then we have 2 8th places, 1 10th and 1 9th. I feel like Matty is just the unknown factor in here. I haven't really seen them play in preseason, but with Stone, Sammy and Ozzy all being players who has played at the tier below before and don't really have the experience going into this tier, they will have to prove themselves, and Matty also has to prove himself as the carry of this team to see them out of the 9th place they've been predicted in.
Indeed, over in 8th place, we see Sistema Solaris again. They're not having much luck. 3 10th places and 2 8th places.
There was sort of KB, Kervisa, Robo, and Righty. Righty being a previous Panthera AGM and coming up from the lower tier. Robo has also been quite a pick within Fantasy, but in the old prospect. Then KB also being quite a known player, and Kervisa, who I was quite an early pick, I believe, in the draft of Soul. So I believe they have got what they wanted, and let's see if they can prove the predictors wrong. Even though they were predicted 8th, 9th, 8th, 5th, and 3rd, netting them an average of 6.68, but that 6.68 was only good for the 8th rank in the Ignis conference.
Yeah, and moving over to the Glaciers conference, in 8th position, we have Spark of the Brave Esports franchise.
Yeah, we have Vix, Toby, Jack the Mac, Big Chubbs, and Fatty Kyle being predicted 10th by both Mox and me. Probably going off a bit of historical bias, especially about the players Toby and Jack, who have historically not been in Challenger all the time, the new prospect, and not been doing too well. Toby being on my own Challenger team, and I quite rate him as a player, but probably not as the main carry on the team. Jack the Mac being on that team last season on Redirect, which kind of fell apart after Nolorin left mid-season, and Big Chaps and Fatika moving up, or Fatika maybe already being prospect or challenger sub last season, I don't quite remember. However, GM and Snow have them in 4th and 5th, so they might have some potential. However, the average of all predictions putting them currently on a 7.48 in 8th.
Yeah, and in 7th position in Ignis, we see a very experienced roster on paper in Owlet of Owls Esports.
Spartan Sorsa, Nitch coming off of the higher tiers, having quite good results when he was on those Alpha Search Hydras rosters within Rival. Jay Leno being the newest AGM in a sense, only getting the call up within the last week. Papa Sparta being a very solid player for the 3rd, and then Sorsa running on the roster. Again, very widely predicted, maybe a bit biased by Bale putting them in 3rd, but ranging until 10th in Snow's prediction, with a predicted average of 6.04 and the rank of 7th.
Yeah, and in 7th place in Glacies, we have the Raymond roster from KDJ Esports.
Yeah, and the roster being Yara and Ariel, who is a new player to the league, Ozarn, who has obviously been on that winning prospect roster together with Wanzi, who we'll be talking about later on. Compact, who has started on as a min player, I believe, in the start of preseason, but has been peaking even more throughout. I think he peaked 1500 recently, so he's just been going up. And Venom Aspect as the sub. I feel like this is quite an interesting roster, especially with Compact improving so much recently, but there are just too many question marks, especially in comparison to other teams, and this has been one of the few teams where the predictors have been somewhat in unison, putting them 7th, 8th, 9th and 6th with an average of 7.424 7th. having them all pretty much just outside the play-in places.
Yeah, and moving on to 6th position in Ignis, we have Kulkan from Alpha Surge.
Being the Mayan counterpart to the Aztec Quetzalcoatl, and the roster being very experienced with Hunter, some Jibs, Potter, and Bishake. Jibs, I believe if it's the same Jibs, has been in the rival tier previously, coming back after quite a bit of a break. Potter, again having good results previously in both rival and challenger, and then Bishake moving himself up into prospect, and Hunter Sam, previously also GM and AGM. Again, very experienced roster, and in a sense they were placed from 1st to 10th. Snow putting them 1st, Stingray in 4th, mean 7th, Bale, no, mean 6th, Bale in 7th, and then GM in 10th. Netting them an average of 5.63 in the 6th spot in the Ignis Conference.
Yeah, a lot of mixed reviews there from the predictors, but over in 6th place in Glacies we have 20R with the team name 20 Recons.
Yeah, this being a very interesting team with 4 players moving up from the old prospect to this prospect, with Aka and 11 who've already teamed together on 20R last season and unfortunately got reverse swept twice, I believe, in playoffs, which is a rough showing, so they will hope to not repeat that this season. Being added towards from Rezio and Kinsey, who are also have been under the lower end or the old prospect here. It's quite hard to rate this roster with just them getting into a new level of play, but with the chemistry Aka and 11 have, Mox put them 3rd, however GM put them 10th, and nobody's really sure on where to rate them, as it's just a completely new environment. However, the averages put them in 6th, with everything from upper bracket to dead last being a possibility.
Yep, and moving on to 5th position over in Ignis, we have Umagis from Team Berserkers.
The roster of Maxi, Sorlestarel, Quabi, and Oreo Maker. Maxi having won the first Red Bull LAN that RSC has organized. Sorlestarel also previously playing within the Challenger tier, so around the same level of play. And then Quabi and Oreo Maker being quite a contentious player in preseason, being moved up quite a bit from his peak. But then again, maybe I have overestimated a bit Stingray's powers in the lower tiers, putting them 2nd, while Stingray himself put them in 6th. But Snow and GM seem to moreover agree with me with their ratings of 3rd and 4th, and the last predictor Bale putting them in 8th, with an average of 4.67, putting them in the rank of 5.
Yeah, and in 5th position in Glacies, we have Ankole Watusi of Unitox and a very mixed bag of predictions, Stingray.
Yeah, we have a roster of Hakon, Blue Jean, Ninja Knight, and Voodoo. Voodoo being on the management team and probably there as the sub, with Hakon being like the support player who held the team together last season on a very good Team Berserkers team, which kind of fell apart unfortunately towards playoffs. And together with Bluegee, who's been in FA for 3 seasons now, last playing in Prospect and the old Prospect on Panthera in RSC season 12. And Ninja Knight, who has been playing as a sub in Challenger, I believe, last season already. I don't quite remember this team, but he's definitely experienced and has been here for a few years. Mox putting them 2nd, me putting them 2nd simply out of bias for Hakon, because I believe he's a great player. And the others putting them 6th and 8th. And also not only us, but also Snow. deciding on this being the dark horse for the tier. Mostly depends on how Blue G and Ninja Knight can adapt, and especially Ninja Knight getting into a main roster position together with Hakon, who I believe the quality is known. Putting the 4.84 average and the 5th place in the prediction.
Yeah, moving up to 4th place in the predictions in Ignis is Occultus of the Dexterity franchise.
Just wanted to mention one thing that I have seen on Twitter, which is Systema Solaris saying, due to the recent events, we will be boycotting the RSC-eu power ranking stream, which I would say, given that this tweet was already an hour ago, with the 3 10th places, I do not disagree with their opinion of disliking this, but these are just power rankings. Okay, coming back to Occultus and Dexterity in 4th place. The roster of replaced Derfiti, Oliver, MH, and the Grizzly Bear. I do not know much about Replace, but Derfiti has been quite a staple within this tier of play around this. I've always remembered him as around just under the 1500. Oliver MH has also been very often within illusory teams, and then Grizzly Bear KB rounding out the roster, being quite an experienced player within the ERC environment as well. Their placements of 3rd, 6th, 4th, and 7th, netting them an average of 4.65 and the rank of 4th.
Yep, and over in 4th place in Glacies, we have Incus from Forge.
With a roster of Fury, Mash, Air, and Dusk. Fury being quite highly rated on a lot of tier lists and prospect I have seen. We tried him out in preseason as well and I liked him. Mash obviously being a staple of RSC, being around forever, not getting on the team last season. However, trying to bounce back with this team, and Air, who has been consistently ranked as one of the best low players in the tier, so I can totally understand that this team has been predicted towards the top half. Dusk being a solid sub, very mechanical player. We'll see how he fits in with the others. However, the predictions are quite similar to each other, with 1/3, 2/4, 1/5, and 1/6 place, putting them in the middle of the tier towards the top.
Yep, and towards the top of Ignis, into the upper brackets position, is Tomfoolery from Illusory.
So Vapids, Jason Kami, Orechina, Streichi, and MST. Jason Kami being the last part of that Illusory roster, which went 17-1 in Challenger last season, dropping down to, I mean, honestly, the only one actually staying within like the same tier of play in a sense. But still, I believe around 30 CMV higher. Vapids being quite a known name within the RSC. MST being, I believe, IRL friends with at least Sim and possibly also Rox. And then Orechina Strechy, who I believe is new to the league. They have been predicted 5th, 2nd, 6th, and 1st from GM. It's actually not Snow being the most biased, but GM predicted them first, with an average of 3.89 and a placement of 3rd.
Yep, and over in 3rd position in Glacies, we have Thunder from DeathCloud Esports.
With Moro DK, who is somewhat in an unusual position without either Sensor or Blue Look, which he has been playing with quite consistently in the past seasons, as well as not on Systema Solaris, who might want him back given the positions they've been predicted in. Razor as the AGM also on the roster, with 5BD, who has moved up from Academy due to peaking as far as I know, and maybe Omar, part of the only team in RSC history who has won every single game throughout the season, back in RSC10 on Symbiotes in the same tier he's in now. And with Bale predicting them at first, he might expect them to do the same again. However, Mox doesn't quite believe in them, putting them in 9th, with me in 5th, Snow in 2nd, and GM in 3rd, so they're pretty much all over the place and everything is possible. We don't really know how to rate this team. However, they definitely have the potential and the history of players to do well.
And in second place for Ignis, we have Impetus from Momentum.
Dispatch, Mercy, and Pure School. Juno and Dispatch both coming in as franchise management and coming in after quite a long break. I believe this might be Juno's first time playing with an RSC, but from what I've seen and of the tracker, it's also quite been a break within just Rocket League. And then yeah, Dispatch coming in, I believe he used to be a bit higher, but we didn't let him drop that much as his tracker would suggest. I do rate both of these players quite highly compared to their values. Then Mursu, who I used to team with in RSC10, and that was in Rival. But the Mursu was only about 50 CMV higher back then, which just shows how much the Rival tier has gone up. And then Pure Skill, who also used to be quite a powerful pick for Prospect Fantasy. But now Prospect moving up and him being min, I do not know if he's sub, but yeah. Me and Stingray have both predicted this team to be first. Snow in 5th, Bale in 2nd, but GM putting them in 9th brings the average a bit down to a 3.7 and the rank of 2nd.
Yeah, and second over in Glacies, we have Ninettle of Azteca Esports.
Yeah, we have two former winners on this team with Coentra, aka Schnabble and Tiger, who won in RSC14 as the sub, and Coentra winning in RSC11 with Stormy and Ibn Danoa, which is a great name in my opinion, rounding up the roster. I believe it's the first season for Stormy actually playing in the Challenger tier. They have been a free agent last season and have taken a break before, only being on Momentum and RSC13 in Prospect. But they've been rated somewhat highly by Bale and GM, putting them second, with the others putting them third, fourth and fifth. However, probably just the experience of the players as well as the individual quality that they've shown in the previous seasons, putting them above other tiers. But as already said, this Prospect tier has been a mess prediction-wise, and it's going to be very interesting how different the final standings look from how those power rankings are panning out currently.
Yeah, you said it was a mess. I forgot to mention in the Ignis side, I just found it funny how GM has rated a team 9th and 10th when two people had them first. So it's just crazy how different these are. But yeah, over in first place in Ignis is Keanu from DSQ Esports, and the first person who insta-messaged me after this was Nations.
Yep, Nations, Char, IMAX Swifty, and Very Fresh Mint. IMAX Swifty being the reigning lowest tier champion. Char also doing very well in that lowest tier 2 seasons ago. Previous time I believe he was challenger and did reasonably well. And then again, Nations always complaining about his CMV being too high and being in this low over tier. I believe has not satisfied him, and he is still complaining about the level of play. And then Very Freshman being the lowest player on the roster, but I have also heard some people rating them quite highly, and being a wanted player during the, or not during, but after the draft within preseason. And yeah, the predictors have put them 7th, 2nd, 4th, 1st, and 2nd. So definitely much more varied than some other tiers that were that we have predicted before. The predicted average is 3.22, but that is enough to put them first in rank in this Ignis conference.
Yep, first in stats points as well. And Nation said, "I'm going to kiss you all. First time I ain't classed as overrated." So I think he is happy about his rating for once. But we move over to someone else who may be happy with their rating, and that is Obscurity of the Shadow Esports franchise. And Wanzi is in prospect.
Indeed, we have to talk about the one player, which is probably the reason they are the undisputed predicted champion from what we've seen. Except maybe by Bale, who only put him third, the others all putting them first, with an average of 1.5 being the clear favorites. With Sir Pegasus, who moves away from Team Serene being one of the high options for Kyle for this roster to support the onesie, together with Roma, who is also more on the mechanical side. We'll see how that works, and Towel Bro, who is technically from the Dexterity Academy, if we could say that. However, he's been snatched away in draft, and played a scrim against him with my rival team, and I rate him quite highly. So I think, I'm not sure what the main roster is gonna be, but Onesie, Sir Pegasus and Towel brought together definitely look like a scary roster, and they've also been the predicted champion, as already said, which seems to be quite likely.
Yep, close to a clean sweep in first place predictions. So we'll just mention the dark horse and champion quickly again. As the dark horse, we have Ankole Watusi from Unitox, with Hakan, Bluegi, Ninja Knight, and Voodoo. Average positions of second, sixth, and 8th, which puts them at 5th. An average rating of 4.84. They are your dark horse. And then in first, we have Obscurity with Onesie, Sir Pegasus, Roma, Towelbro. Like I said, nearly a clean sweep across the board, with only Bale rating them third. Didn't have a good pre-season though, by the looks of it. 19th out of 20th on the stats rank. What's that, sorry?
Onesie wasn't playing, so that's
fair.
Sense.
As we say in the chat, pre-season means nothing, chat.
Yeah.
But we do move on to our final tier after 2 hours and 15 minutes. We have in 10th position Marcium from Systema Solaris.
Yep, the roster of Chose World, Loopy, Yannick from G, and McMain. I don't really remember putting this, but Chose World has, I believe this is also an SSA player and has done quite well in that competition. We will see what he can do here. Loopy being a very much a staple name for the lowest tier of the RSC, and then Yannick at mean CMV at last being allowed. We will see how they do. They will not be happy with the 10th place. And then McMain used to be a Might of Hades AGM, rounding out the roster, I believe, as sub, with the placements of 9th, 10th, 9th, and 7th, with an average of 8.9 and a rank of 10th.
Yeah, I just want to sum up Systema Solaris predictions. 10th, 8th, 10th. It's not looking good. But 10th place in Glacies, we have Xinjiang from Unitox.
Yeah, with Hansen, who is obviously a well-known name, former GM of mine, like 4 years back or so. Now down in Academy, former rival player, has dropped quite a bit. He's also gotten a boost to his CMV by quite some margin, as far as I believe, and he would have been in the 1200s otherwise. Zombie Light, who I believe is a new player who I've not heard a lot of. Pixel Glitch being around, as well as Extalicon, who has been in prospect for well over 2 years as well, from what I remember. So some well-known names, but the people don't believe that the experience can get them anywhere else but 10th, with 3 10th places, 1 9th, and 1 8th place prediction from GM, who believes that they can at least get away from the bottom spot.
Yeah, I must say, I'm looking at some of the teams in that conference. I'm not sure where the 10th is coming from, especially when they made pre-season semis. Hansen might finally find his value in this tier now. But some experienced players there, definitely. Moving on to 9th place in Ignis, we have Alter of Sanctuary.
roster of Buckets, who has for quite some time been a fantasy cheat code in the lowest tier. Misty Dragon SSA, which is actually making it easy to remember that they are playing on 160 to 180 ping. Then we have Bassi and Vikingstad. I disagreed with most of the predictors, putting them quite highly in third, just because of that Bucket's potential, both in fantasy and just in the tier itself. But the three predictors putting them in 10th and 1/5 made the average of 7.63, which was actually only enough for 9.
And over in 9th position in Glacies, we have juniors of KDJ Esports.
Yeah, this has been somewhat of a surprising one, dropping down so low, with Nexus being around for 3 seasons, being on 20R in RSC16, in the tier above. So, in the now prospect old challenger tier, and not being on a team last season with Slavic Yoyo, Mats obviously, one of the head admins, and Danki rounding up the roster, who's also in the mod committee and some other staff committees. Most people, or at least Ethan, putting them in 10th, the others putting them 8th, 8th, 7th, and 9th. Just not believing that this roster can go far. The preseason results certainly don't help that, with them finishing last in their group. However, preseason doesn't really say a lot, and it just seems to be the competition in the conference that they couldn't really come up against.
Yeah, and moving on to 8th position now, it is Livens with DSQ Esports.
The roster of Endrick, MK, Psychologic, and Jono. Endrick being one of the few Slovakian players within the RSC, but also having previously played in the higher tier of Challenger, which used to be on the level that is Prospect now. MK, I believe this is their either second or third season. I'm not quite sure how they did before. Psycho, also being quite a staple name of the lowest tiers, has previously done quite well. And then Jono as the 1200 of the roster. Unfortunately, this wasn't really enough for the predictors to put them particularly high. They were rated 10th, 8th, 4th, 7th, and 5th, with the predicted average of 6.85, which was only enough for the 8th rank.
Yeah, and the 8th rank in Glacies is Forge with the Hot Metal team.
Yeah, this was a hard one to rank, because from what I know, you only have Kuros, who is a known player, who was on Team Serene in Prospect last season, and currently being a new player, Billind. I feel like I've heard the name before, but I can't remember, and DGTL24, unless they changed the name, certainly being a new name. They've been rated quite lowly by Mox and me, and rated a bit higher by the actual Academy players who may have played against them. So this might have been skewed downwards by people who have no idea what they're talking about. But the averages of 3 6th places, 1 9th, and 1 10th, putting them in 8th.
Yeah, and moving on to 7th position in Ignis is a very experienced roster from 3 of the players at least, is Trickery for Illusory.
Tombasta, being the highest CMV, very often also being quite a good pick in fantasy, which I'm now noticing is where most of my knowledge in the lowest tier comes from. Then yeah, JPEG FC at 1320, Ryu, who I have not heard much about before, and then Lanners, again, yeah, previously admin, previously GM, very experienced player. They have been put 8th, 5th, 8th, 6th, and 3rd, netting them an average of 6.09 and the rank of 7th.
Yep, moving over to Glacies again. In 7th, we have Aspire Esports with the team name Ascent.
Yeah, the probably most contentious roster we've had so far, with Masters, Nathan, Otakarp, and obviously Milwaukee. they reunited the duo of Masters and Nathan, who wasn't originally on the team, instead of Kit. And I feel like for the predictors, it's just hard to judge how that third player on the team with Otakap and Milwaukee will do. Masters and Nathan have proven that they can be playing well together, made runs in playoffs last season, and the predictions show that with 1 4th place, 6th, 2 7th, and 1 8th place, putting them just in or just outside of the top 7. But I feel like this is one of the teams that's more of a wild card than others, and which can definitely surprise.
Yep, moving over to 6th position in Ignis, we do have Bahamut, of Alpha Surge.
I believe an Arabic mythological creature. But yeah, in this case, the roster and academy of Nekoma, Fluoster, UK Devs, and Harry Lord. I have seen Nekoma and Fluoster both playing within the lowest tiers and doing quite well. UK Devs, this is probably the first time I am hearing this season of UK Devs and Harry Lord. They have been placed 6th, 4th, 6th, 5th, and 9th, giving them an average of 6.04, which is just 0.05 higher than the rank 7 team, and they are the rank 6.
Yeah, 6th over on the other side is Azteca Esports with Coyotl.
Yeah, with a roster of Mistrak, Hell, Torga, and Polar, all established players within the league. I feel like the uncertainty just comes from how this team can fare with people who are all like in the middle of the tier. I feel like all of them are rated by academy players quite in the middle of each tier list, so this is just a balanced roster, which fully depends on their chemistry, how well they can do. And the predictions show that people just aren't sure with the 2nd, the 5th, and then 7th, 8th, and 9th respectively, putting them at an average of 6.25 in 6th.
Yeah, that's an interesting one with this team, because if you look at prospect in the past, these would always usually be min or low prospects, and these are kind of one of the only teams who are built with like 3 mid academy players, so it's going to be interesting to see how this one works out. Definitely mixed averages. Moving on to 6th, is it 5th place in Ignis? We have Team Berserkers and Drengir.
Yep, the roster of Ninjisam, Banja, the Greek Bill, and Whoops. The Greek Bill has not played a season of the RSC, I believe, but they have played and won the lowest tier of the RSC16, the country's cup run by the events committee over the off-season. And in true Stingray fashion, the rest of the players I have not seen or heard about. And yet I still rank them highly because I do believe in Stingray in the lowest tiers. I've put them 2nd, Stingray himself put them in 3rd, and then the actual academy players did not rank them quite as high, with 9th, 8th, and 6th, with an average of 5.66 and the rank of 5th. However, this skew towards me and Stingray, we've decided to put them as the dark horse in the 5th spot, the dark horse to win the trophy.
Yep, and moving on to 5th place in Glacies, we have Brave Esports with the team name Arconics, obviously in remembrance to one of RSC's old players who sadly passed away recently.
Yeah. About the roster, we have 2 people who have been a staple on other franchises previously, with the Vips coming over after 2 seasons from Team Serene, and Rorogi most famously known for being on Systema Solaris quite frequently. We also have Very Red, who also signed up last season I believe already, but has not gotten the team, and Kronos as the sub. Vips and Rorogi obviously being experienced, but the uncertainty is about those 2 other players, and also how Rorogi is gonna perform without Stork, who's on another team we will hear about later, who's been a great player obviously. With them being predicted from 3rd to 9th, by different people, actually excluding Mox and me this time, so the actual Academy players are quite unsure where to put them, with Snow putting them in third and GM, who's actually not an Academy player. Never mind. Danky Avocado putting them in third, and Ethan putting them in ninth. And an average of 5.89 and a rank of 5th.
Moving on to 4th position in Ignis. Another Knight Esports name that I cannot say at all. I will leave it and pass it over to Mox.
The roster of Ifan 2K, Rubber Ducky, Ahmed Arla, and Myro. Ifan 2K being my GM within the OSL League, whose playoffs have unfortunately not happened. Then Rubber Ducky and Ahmed. Ahmed, I believe this is their first time being on a roster. Myro being the lowest CMV player, and Rubber Ducky I don't really know much about. The predictors putting them 7th, 6th, 7th, 3rd, and 4th, netting an average of 5.51 and the rank of 4th.
Yeah, and in 4th place in Glacies, we have Team Serene and Unito.
Yeah, and this team we have a bit of a similar story as the one before, with Tane being on Illusory last season and also winning All-Star, I believe. Together with Charlie, who has been peaking in rank recently and also been playing really well. The question mark seems to be the same as the one before we had with the roster, where we had a lot of middle of the road players, with Envy and Vice being the 3rd and 4th. Envy obviously being a staple of the RSC as well, just dropping down the tiers. But most people predicting them right in the middle, with 2 4th, 1 5th, 1 3rd and 1 6th place. Just looking towards the higher up places, but just lacking the quality that some of the higher up tiers have, especially in the spot of the main player.
Yeah, and heading into the upper bracket of our final tier, our lowest tier, is Khalidus from Dexterity.
The roster of Meklo, Charles Affair, GTT Thunder, and Kapuze. Meklo being a very mechanical player, often when seeing the gameplay, people would have rated him much higher than his CMV may seem. But this is what he has been placed, and this is what we believe as the admin says is okay value for him. Charles Affair being the AGM of the Dexterity roster, one of the youngest AGMs, I believe, to ever be in RSC, and GTT Thunder, who has always been a part of all of those lower tiered Patroid and Team Berserkers roster, this time going to another German org in Dexterity, and Kapuze running out the roster as Min. They have been put as 4th, 7th, 3rd, 4th, and 8th, netting them an average of 5.28 and the rank of 3, which just shows how different the predicted average can be from the rank because of the differences of opinions between predictors.
Yeah, and next up is Hayes of Shadow Esports, and one name I do recognise from many, many, many years ago is Rai at 1390, and I'm pretty sure Rai was one of the first players I ever played with in a Rocket League in IEL back in season 5 or 6. I subbed in for a franchise. I think that was GM'd by Jacket Potato, and honestly, I haven't seen him since, so it's nice to see that name back.
Indeed. He has been drafted, I don't remember which season that was, but in May of 2020 by the Fashionistas in Major back then, in round 2 at that. So, absolute OG coming back after, it sounds even weird to say it, but over 5 years of not playing in the RSC, now back in the lowest tier, from being in the highest tier, or the second highest tier previously. Being paired up together with the Veiled, obviously a staple in the former Prospect tier. Together with the Vortex, who's also been around. I believe he has played in the season that Rai last played as well, so been around for well over 5 years. With the Vistrit, who I haven't heard of before, being the third, being the sub. and then being predicted quite highly by a lot of people, especially by the academy players, putting them second, third, and fourth, with Mox and me bringing the average down a bit with fourth and fifth, still netting them an average of 3.7 and putting them in third.
Yeah, this is 5 or 6 years ago now that I'm talking. Like, if Rai has actually played Rocket League in that space of time, he could be a steal for this team. Because obviously I was playing at like what 1600 level with him, and that was very long ago. So I'm interested to see what this team can do, especially with someone as experienced as Veiled. But moving on to second into Ignis, we have Momentum and Propel.
Yeah, the players of Custom, Scrubster, and King Arthur have made quite a name for themselves within Scrubster for quite a bit of a longer time, and then Arthur and Customs quite recently. Again, one of those rosters that's a bit maybe more closer together in terms of CMVs, and then the fourth player being Crazy Minion. They have been predicted 5th and then 3 times 2nd and 1st, netting them an average of 2.47 and the rank of 2nd.
Yeah, and in second place in Glacies, we have DeathCloud Esports and Rain.
With a very interesting roster. Stork, I've already talked about before, being that Sistema Solaris player and generally a very good prospect player in the old tier, now in Academy. With BMD being a new player and Hosh being a new player as well, but Hosh obviously well known as the team streamer for DeathCloud Esports last season, being the first round pick, as well as being one of the main casters for the RSC broadcast itself, and already having had some complaints about him being too good at the game apparently. But he's been grinding, and this team, especially with Stork's experience and Hodge's general ability, apparently definitely looking towards the upper ranks of the table, with Space Crisp as the GM, rounding up the roster as the sub, being predicted not outside of the top 3 by anyone.
Yeah, for a brand new player to Rocket League as well, and only just started grinding as well, I've been impressed with Hodge's development as well. Seeing him rank up from like 900 MMR to like 12, or whatever his CMV is, 1280. Played against him in OSL as well, and he was a very solid third. Couple of whiffs here and there, but you expect that from a lower player. But for a new player, he looked very like sensible and smart as a third man. So I'm being interested to see if they can prove these average ratings right. But moving on to first position in Ignis, we have Young Owls from Owls Esports.
Yep, the roster of Jim Jams, Biffy 30, Clover, and Maurice. Jim Jams being the reigning lowest tier champion, Biffy 30 being a very, very solid player second, and then Clover, who they have traded for with Illusory, also being a very contentious player in a sense. We will see what goes with it, but they have been rated very highly. And then Maurice as the lowest CMV player, also a very solid pickup as the fourth, being predicted first across the board, except for one predictor who put them second, average of 1.22 with the rank of first, and our predicted champions as well.
Yeah, and moving over to first in the opposite conference is 20R with the team name 20 Recruits.
Yeah, with the roster of Nep, who is new to the league but has been rated very highly by a lot of people, also by myself, putting him into my fantasy team, so please win a lot of games, thank you. Nakira being the second, who's always been a solid player in the lowest tier, and also been in some drama previously, but if he just gets to playing, a very mechanical player can definitely help this team. GNG not returning after a while. He hasn't been on a team since RSC11, being on Team Serene back then. So now returning to playing, actually on a different franchise on 20R, with Mimicking, who I've seen play in 6-mans at times, but don't really know a lot about, being the sub, being predicted first by 3 people, being myself, Bale, and GM, and then second and third by Danky and Mox respectively. Certainly depends a lot on how Nep can perform, but from what we've seen in preseason, they definitely have the potential to finish highly in the season with a stats rank of 1.
Yeah, I think it's only one of 2 teams in the whole tier that has their 3rd man as a minimum as well as a sub. So it's impressive to see their average rating actually takes them to 1st. But I do heavily rate Nakira. I played with him on my OSL team and we had a very good start, only losing, I think, one of the first 5 series, and then things got a little bit awkward. But I don't think it was necessarily to do with Nakira. And I genuinely thought he could be a prospect, to be fair. And when I was AGMing for Aspire before IRL circumstances cropped up, I did tell Reptic to try and draft him as well. So, yeah, very good team to have first. But just to recap our dark horse and predicted champion, our dark horse is Drengir from Team Berserkers with the roster of Ninja Sam, Banja, the Greek Bill, and Whoops. Mox, Stingray, Dank Avocado, Hodge, and Ethan had them 2nd, 3rd, 9th, 8th, and 6th with a predicted average of 5.66, putting them 5th. And first is Young Owls from Owls Esports with Jim Jams, Biffy 30, Clover, and Maurice 1610. With Mox having them 1st, Stingray 1st, Dank Avocado 2nd, Hodge 1st, and Ethan 1st. And that is our tiers predicted, which now moves us on to how the franchises will fare. So these average ranks come from how we've ranked them in every tier. And I think we all know who is coming 20th. Mox, I'll let you go over the average pick rate for them.
Yes, unfortunately for Systema Solaris, I think everyone looking at the stream have seen it coming, with the predicted average being only 8.86, putting them by far in the 20th rank, over 1.5 spots below the predicted average of the higher tier. This being heavily skewed by myself and Stingray, and usually the 5th predictor, whoever that was, actually put them quite a bit higher at 7.5. But it's unfortunate for Solaris. This is where they have been put.
Yeah, and in 19th, we have Sanctuary with the general manager of the Crezzes and GM and Wally as the assistant GMs. Average pick rate of 6.5 from Mox, 7.67 from Stingray, 6.33, 8.17, and 6.83 from the rest, which gives them a predicted average of 7.15, and they are 19th. So in 18th place, Stingray, we have Unitox.
Yep. Totally didn't get the graphics on the wrong side currently. Anyways, they've been predicted in comparison to Systema Solaris quite highly, like with a predicted average of only, or 7.11, which is just slightly 0.04 behind the next spot, and also quite close to the spots above. Being quite the same throughout all predictors, with the middle predictor, which is just 5 different people, predicting them an 8th on an average, with Mox and me being a bit nicer. But especially like this middle lower tier seems to be quite close together, with a jump from Sanctuary and especially Soul.
Yep, and in 17th position we have ADJ Esports, Mox.
KDJ Esports, which is a new org that was brought in by Dylan with the AGM of Mutschuk, and then after being accepted they have added in Larson for that master and elite players maybe knowledge. Didn't net them great in our power rankings, giving them an average of 7.07 and putting them in the 17th position and as a whole.
And in 16th place we have Nate Esports with the general manager D Lynch, assistant manager of No One Knows Nova, and Large Grady. And they have an average pick of 6.83. in the conferences, which puts them at 16th. In 15th position, we have Aspire Esports Stingray.
Yeah, they've been somewhat interesting because all the tiers have been quite all over the place, with Master receiving a very high rating. However, other tiers such as the Challenger roster, I believe, finishing in 10th. So a lot of variance in there, and a lot of teams which we might not be able to predict. I believe with the Academy roster and also the Elite roster, we said we would just have to see what they'll do. We're not sure what will happen, especially also with the rebuild in Rival, and there's definitely a chance for them to climb up the ranks even more.
Yeah, and in 14th place, Mox, I think they'd take this based on last season. It's Brave Esports at 14th.
Predicted 14th, Brave Esports with Fatih, Kyle, Brick, and NC. Last season didn't fare too well, but this season maybe we have them predicted a bit higher. Let's see if they're if it's possible for them to live up to those expectations or possibly be better, since 14th isn't really that great of a placement either, with a predicted average within the conference of 6.45.
And in 13th place, we have DSQ Esports with the management team of Nations, Chart, and EO4 MCC. Kind of low based on the previous performances recently. Nations has definitely picked up this franchise over the last couple of years. But yeah, 13th with a predicted average of 6.08. And in 12th place, we have the returning Forge Stingray.
Yeah, they will probably take that from what I've heard. Wolfie hasn't been quite happy with the teams he got, so 12th place is definitely higher than he might have predicted himself. And there's definitely chance for improvement, especially if that Rival roster gets going with himself. And the two teams where we have the management team of Wolfie, Panic, and Stam and Bozo in Rival and Challenger. And a lot of other tiers which seem to be quite a few question marks from what we've talked about earlier, with an average rating of 6.01, putting them in 12th, with the third predictor putting them at an average of 4.17. So those five random people have been very generous.
Yep, and topping the table of the bottom half, usually a steady franchise, and that is Team Serene, Mox.
Serene with the usual Meaty-Big 999 at the home. And then we have Chiron and Vice as this season's AGMs. They got an average predicted rank within the conference of 5.75, and this gives them the rank of 11th.
Okay, moving on to the top half, we have in 10th place Dexterity, with the management team of Shattered, Charles Afar, and Please, so two new AGMs, I believe, on this season. With a predicted average of 5.53, which is exactly mid-table of the conferences, and find themselves mid-table in RSC2. Moving on to 9th place, we have 20R Stingray.
Also returning franchise being in the middle of the pack, with Jason as the new GM and Aka and Ophanim stepping down from GM towards the AGM spot, being quite generously rated by Mox with a 4.0 and overall coming down to a 5.09 average in 9th place. Funnily enough, winning the stats rank for the preseason, but as we always say, preseason means absolutely nothing.
Yeah, and moving on to 8th position, we have Azteca Esports.
Azteca with Mauve, Matrix, and Shin. This is the exactly same management which was there during last draft, in which they have won 2 tiers and got franchise of the season, being predicted 4.96, and within the conference, the rank of 8th might be a bit low for their standards, but we will see if they can maybe go higher.
Yeah, one of the most successful franchises in winning tiers recently, since the stepping down of a few other successful franchises in the past. But moving on to 7th position, we have Team Berserkers, with Stingray taking over the reins as general manager, with Petroz stepping down into AGM and Sasuke as the second AGM. They have an average pick rating of 4.8 and find themselves at a solid top 7 finish predicted. And in 6th position, we have Momentum.
Yeah, great showing. Dispatch coming back after years of not being within RSC directly as a GM. Together with Flossie, who helped out, and Juno, who Dispatch will be playing together with in Prospect. With very much similar rates, with around between 4.0 and 5.0 predictions by everyone, and a predicted average of 4.55. However, even though they are technically a new franchise with a great rank of 6, they are not our best newcomers.
Yes, and introducing our best newcomers, they have had a bit of a sticky preseason in terms of management wise, but they find themselves 5th in the predicted rankings. We now have Bale as GM, Sambo SWFC as the assistant manager 1, and Jay Leno as the assistant manager 2. And a very solid introduction to RSC, it seems. If the predictions are anything to go by. But Mox will leave with you at number 4 with Alpha Surge.
Yeah, the two very experienced pair of franchise management, Axus and Rapids, moving over to Alpha Surge from Forge, and earlier Arctic Frenzy. Hunter Sam also being an experienced franchise manager on Whoops and Visionary. They have got a 4.3 prediction average within the conferences, and their rank as 4th.
And in 3rd position, we do find Death Cloud Esports. They have an average pick of 4.05 and find themselves in a top 3 position with the same GM as last season, Space Crisp, and same AGMs, I believe, in Razor and Trout. And in 2nd position, Stingray, we have last season's franchise of the season, finished 1st, I believe. They are predicted to finish 2nd again.
Indeed, they'll just stick with their guns. Same with Death Cloud, who also finished 6th last season, I believe. Also a great showing with Illusory dropping down 1 place or double the placement, depending on how positive or negative you want to see that. But seemingly they've got great teams together again, with very little variance between all predictors, from 3.17 as being the lowest from Mox, with 3.5 being the highest, and an average of 3.54, putting them in 2nd.
Yep, and in 1st position and introducing our predicted champion, definitely not Sistema Solaris, is Shadow Esports.
Shadow with the usual pair of recently usual pair of Kyle and Mifro as GM and AGM1, Veiled as their 2nd AGM. This franchise has consistently been at the very top of the standings. I don't remember the last time they were below 5th. They have also got quite a few franchise of the seasons. Generally, yeah, predicted very well at 3.34 across the predictions, and me and Stingray actually putting them quite a bit higher than the 5, let's say, experts going in to different tiers, with me putting them in 2nd and Stingray in 2.5 average. Yep, 3.34 average rating in the conference and resulting in the rank of 1st.
Yep, and that does conclude our power rankings stream for RSC16. League play did start tonight, so you will see games being reported, scheduled, etc. Stingray is our stream manager, so I'll let him give you a bit of an idea of what is coming up this week.
Yeah, we had some stuff to figure out, so we will post some stream overview for the end of the week for Saturday and Sunday. Probably having 2 streams this week, and then following the next 8 weeks, hopefully with either 2 or 3 streams a week on this very channel from 8 to 10:30 p.m. CEST. The usual casters you already know and love, and probably starting next week we will also be posting stream polls again, so you can vote for your own team to be on stream or vote against your own team if you don't want to play on stream. We will also introduce some possibilities for team streams and individual streams to be more highlighted. However, there will be an announcement for that later on, and that's all from me in that regard.
Yeah, Mox, do you have anything final to say before we head out?
Not really. I'm kind of waiting to do something when we get off.
Right, okay, I'll see us out. Hopefully see you through the week on the streams that are coming up. And yeah, hope you enjoyed Power Rankings. Remember, preseason doesn't mean much, and neither do our rankings, it's just a bit. So we'll leave it there, and good night.
Night.